I have a sweet at the end of the world. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 651, Overestimating Your Abilities. Jiang Chen left the clinic with a bottle of serum and the relevant information about the operation. According to Dr. Sun, as long as you are under the age of 50, you can undergo the ability transplantation operation. Through special methods, it only takes 1 to 2 years to evolve toughness into resurrection. He is only in his 20s now, and there is no need to make a choice so quickly. Don't you need to control that, Dr. Sun? When leaving the slums, Sun Jiao turned her head and looked at Jiang Chen and asked, "Send someone to keep an eye on him. As for controlling him, it doesn't seem necessary," Jiang Chen said. At the end of the conversation, Jiang Chen invited him to work as a doctor at the Fishbone base, but he was rejected. He hopes to continue to stay in this settlement and continue to live on the wasteland as Dr. Sun to treat those poor people. But at the same time, he also said that when the people around him are old and the children have grown up, he will consider closing the clinic and quietly leaving here. At that time, he will consider lying in the hibernation chamber and going to the distant future. Crossing an alley, the two walked towards the exit of the slums. But at this moment, several figures walked out of the shadows and surrounded the two. Jiang Chen stopped and looked at the group of people who blocked their way with interest. They were holding guns, knives and even sticks. He could clearly see the unfriendly look on their faces. Are there really people who are not afraid of death? Jiang Chen narrowed his eyes slightly and asked with a pleasant face, "Who are you?" The bald man in the lead did not speak, but the young man carrying a rifle took 2 steps forward and spoke in a frivolous tone. "Boy, you just came to the capital and you have destroyed so many people's jobs. You are quite arrogant." "Destroy jobs?" Jiang Chen suddenly understood and spoke thoughtfully. "So, you were sent by a dismissed official?" Another thug holding a machete tilted his neck, making a crackling sound, and looked at Jiang Chen with cruel sarcasm in his eyes. "You are quite bold, coming here without even a guard, and with a girl by your side. Don't you know this is a slum?" "Of course I know this is a slum, but do I need to bring that thing?" Jiang Chen laughed. The thugs looked at him, as if he was a villain, looked at each other, and laughed. "Okay, no more nonsense. Someone wants to buy your life. I'm sorry. We will take care of the little beauty next to you for you." The bald man smiled evilly, his eyes narrowed into a slit, and he looked at Sun Jiao wantonly. "I'm not small, although I'm a little smaller than my sister." Sun Jiao blinked at Jiang Chen without any sense of danger, then turned to look at the bald man with a smile, and her voice gradually became cold. "Just based on what you said just now, it's enough for you to die twice." "Huh? Just you?" The young man grinned, put down the rifle on his shoulder, pointed at Sun Jiao, and said arrogantly, "I want to take a good look at you. Too lazy to watch these people's ugly performances." A cold voice floated out from Jiang Chen's lips. "Fire." Woo. Like a gust of wind, it blew up dust several meters high. When the dust cleared, only the bullet holes on the ground and the slight smell of blood in the air were left, which could prove that these bandits had existed. As a marshal, he certainly couldn't walk into a dangerous place without protection. However, under the cover of the airship, he didn't think there would be any dangerous places here. Jiang Chen turned his head and looked at the shivering civilians hiding in the shadows, meeting those pairs of terrified eyes. These people may have known that these local snakes were lying in ambush here, but no one reminded the two, and they squatted nearby. Needless to say, they must be planning to pick up the corpse. Jiang Chen suddenly felt that these skinny and dark faces were like crows standing on branches. Really? This kind of troublesome matter should be left to me, but suddenly it happened like this, and my skirt is covered with blood. Sun Jiao turned around with a grey face, pinched the skirt that was splashed with blood, and rolled her eyes at Jiang Chen in dissatisfaction. "It's okay, I'll go back and help you change." Walking to the side, Jiang Chen smiled and blew in her ear. Jiao's cheeks were slightly red, and she spat lightly. "Hate." The two disappeared into the alley. Like crows smelling rot, People hiding in the shadows rushed forward, rummaging around in the crater, filled with mincemeat, and started to dig up valuables. After returning to the airship, Jiang Chen took Sun Jiao out to take a shower and put on clean clothes. Then he called Kazuan, the executive officer. All those who were dismissed from their posts were imprisoned and investigated one by one. If they were found to be involved in the attack in the alley, they would be killed. After explaining the matter, Jiang Chen went to the command room of the airship and discussed the next deployment with Han Junhe. The first corps surrendered to the Federation. The soldiers of the Federation have crossed the Ganjiang River Bridge and are building fortifications. From the images observed by the drone, they are equipped with anti-aircraft guns and anti-aircraft missiles, as well as heavy support artillery. Like us, they are taking the elite route. Jiang Chen nodded and asked, "What about the other corps of the empire?" The second corps ended the siege of Dangang Plantation and fled northward, apparently intending to flee to Wu City. The fourth corps ended the suppression of the rebels and is negotiating surrender with us. What do they want? Jiang Chen asked. Leader Li Haicheng agreed to surrender to us, but hopes that we can let him continue to serve as the corps commander. Accepts his conditions. After a pause, Jiang Chen continued, after he surrenders, we will cut half of the troops, retrain them, and establish the 2nd Militia Regiment to be stationed at Jinxi Lake Farm, to be responsible for defense. Okay. Han Junhe nodded. At this time, Deputy Captain Wang Xiaowu walked into the command room and stood beside Jiang Chen to report. The Federation sent an envoy, hoping to discuss the distribution of Han Cheng's sphere of influence with us. An envoy from the Federation? Thinking of the Federation taking advantage of the fire, Jiang Chen's mouth curled up with a playful smile. Let them wait in the reception room next to the palace. I will meet them in person. Yes. Wang Xiaowu stood at attention. By the way, we'll drive the airship to Jinxi Lake in a while. It's not safe to get too close to the Federation's anti-aircraft firepower, and there's no need for that. Jiang Chen said. The ultra-long-range firepower coverage capability of the order can easily cover the entire territory of Hangcheng, even if it's hundreds of kilometers away. If it weren't for showing off military power, there would be no need to write on the face. After leaving the command room, Jiang Chen called Jiang, who was resting at the Jinxi Lake Farm, and ordered him directly in an imperative tone. Come to the stadium. Now, Jiang said in surprise. Nonsense. Can I ask what it is? Jiang asked in a low voice. Good thing, Jiang Chen said impatiently. If you want to be the president of this federation, stop talking nonsense and come quickly. I'll arrange someone to pick you up. Go to the farm gate to catch you right now. Yes, yes. Jiang answered ecstatically, hung up the phone, and ran out the door immediately. For a congressman, aspiring to be the president is a dream come true. This is especially true for an exiled member of parliament, who is tempted to return to the center of power. Chapter 652, Federation Envoy. Your firepower is impressive. Since the annoying empire and mutants are all destroyed, why don't we draw a border, take a step back, and don't harass each other? Jiang Chen met the envoy from the Federation in the reception room next to the palace. What is your proposal? Jiang Chen asked with a smile. The Gan River is a boundary. The west of the Gan River belongs to the Federation, and the east of the Gan River is the NAC territory. How about opening the border to each other, free trade between the two sides, and mutual exchange of what they have, without setting up checkpoints? The envoy proposed with a smile. Jiang Chen was surprised by the conditions proposed by the Federation envoy. He originally thought that the two sides would go back and forth at the negotiation table, or confront each other with swords drawn, or even go to war, but he didn't expect the negotiations to go so smoothly. The Federation, which had already crossed the Gan River, actually lowered its posture and was willing to retreat voluntarily. Jiang Chen tapped his index finger on the armrest of the chair, thinking about the true intention of the Federation in making such a request. However, no matter how he thought about it, the conditions proposed by the envoy made him unable to think of a reason to refuse. After pondering for a moment, he spoke in a relaxed tone. It seems that we have reached an agreement. The envoy smiled, took a half step back, and bowed to Jiang Chen in a gentlemanly manner. It is an honor to reach a consensus on cooperation with you, Mr. Marshal. Since they had reached an agreement, the two sides signed a contract symbolizing friendship on the spot. Without staying too long, the envoy took his own contract and said goodbye to Jiang Chen. After the envoy walked away, Jiang Chen looked at Han Jianhe, who was standing next to him, without saying a word. What do you think? If what NAC needs is a market and a raw material supply base, the Federation's proposal has already met our needs. Han Jianhe replied. I agree with you, although I always feel that things are not that simple. Jiang Chen nodded. After a while, Jiang Chen finally arrived at the stadium. However, as soon as he arrived at the reception room, the Federation's envoy had already left. Looking at the panting Jiang Chen made a helpless expression. You're late. The Federation's envoy has already left. So soon. Have you reached an agreement? Jiang Chen straightened up and looked at Jiang Chen in surprise and asked. Of course, we set the Gan River as the boundary, and the two sides have free trade. The specific agreement is here. Jiang Chen casually threw the newly signed agreement into Jiang Chen's hands. So unfortunately, it seems that you can't be the president. How about being a diplomat to the Federation? Jiang Chen took the agreement from Jiang Chen's hand, glanced at it carefully, and then put it down. This is a trap. Oh. Jiang Chen looked at Jiang Chen with interest. Although the Federation's military is not bad, the Federation's best fighters are not soldiers. What is it? It's businessmen. Jiang Chen replied. Jiang Chen almost laughed out loud. Jiang Chen looked at Jiang Chen in confusion, not understanding what was so funny. It was because the Empire was afraid of the Federation's businessmen that it set so many rules and regulations in its own market, and relied on raising tariffs and protectionist policies to support its shaky economy. It seems that you have a chance to become president. Jiang Chen did not explain to him, but stood up with a smile, walked to Jiang Chen's side, and patted his shoulder. But I hope you go back to the Federation first, only then can you participate in the election. Jiang Chen shook his head and looked at Jiang Chen pleadingly. No, I don't want to go back. They will definitely kill me. The president will not let me go, and the forces behind him. Don't worry, you won't die. Jiang Chen comforted. You are going back as an act diplomat. They will definitely not dare to kill you. Moreover, you have been outside for so long, and the reason to kill you to keep the password no longer exists. As long as the president of the Federation is not blind, he will not be blind that Shelter 71 has been controlled by the NAC. Once a secret is known to a third person, it is no longer a secret. But, Jiang Chen waved his hand impatiently. It's nothing. If you want to be the president, just listen to me, or I will change someone. I'll go. Jiang Chen immediately stopped talking nonsense and hurriedly said, you know what's good for you. Jiang Chen glanced at this guy, paused, and then spoke. After returning to the Federation, be an honest diplomat. You don't need to do anything, just wait for my instructions. Jiang Chen nodded repeatedly and carefully wrote down Jiang Chen's instructions. Also, keep an eye out for one thing for me. What is it? Who sent that letter to you? Jiang Chen said. Hearing this, Jiang Chen smiled bitterly and said, didn't I say it? It was Dr. Sun. It wasn't sent by him, although it was in his name. Jiang Chen said lightly. I swear to God, I didn't lie to you. And that was indeed Dr. Sun's notes. I asked someone to come to the Empire to get his handwriting. Jiang Chen thought Jiang Chen suspected that he was lying, so he immediately swore. I know you didn't lie to me, you were just deceived. Jiang Chen teased. The signature on the letter does not necessarily represent the identity of the sender. He runs a clinic and signs countless bills a day. It's not difficult to imitate his handwriting and write a letter. Then how do you know the letter was not written by him? Jiang Chen asked back. Because I have seen him, and I'm sure he has no reason to do so. Jiang Chen said. Okay, I will pay attention. Jiang Chen nodded. After seeing Jiang Chen off, Jiang Chen handed over the affairs of Qingshan Town to Governor Chen Ling, gave a few instructions to the newly appointed executive officer Kaizuan, and then boarded the order and returned to Jinxi Lake Farm. In the farm, several agricultural locomotives can be seen plowing the land, with bundles of bamboo saplings hiding next to them, and several newly employed farmers sitting on the side to enjoy the cool. The merchants in the 6th block not only brought capital, but also advanced technology. Apart from anything else, the agricultural locomotives plowing the fields were produced by the factories in the 6th block. Not far away, NAC technicians were still building a communication base station. After it is completed, Hangcheng will also be included in the credit point app payment system. At the same time, data exchange between here and Wanghai City will also be able to be carried out through the network. After arriving at the command post, Jiang Chen found his personal guard Captain Li Wang and asked about the task assigned to him some time ago. Have you found the Quantum Computer Research Institute? Several suspected targets have been confirmed. I have sent my personal guard brothers to search the relevant locations. I will be able to give you an accurate answer in 3 days at the latest. Very good. I'm very relieved to leave this matter to you. It is our honor to share the worries of the Marshal. Li Wang stood at attention. Jiang Chen nodded approvingly. There is one thing I want you to do. What is it? Go to Dangang Plantation for me and persuade the survivors there to join us. Jiang Chen said, looking into his eyes. Yes, sir. Li Wang clasped his fists and turned to walk out. Wait a minute. Jiang Chen suddenly called him. Li Wang stopped and turned around to ask, anything else you can do for me? You have been with me for so long. I'm very satisfied with your loyalty, but I still need to test your ability. I will not give you any hints for this mission, nor will I impose any restrictions on your methods of persuading them. Your behavior and the final result will be part of the assessment. If you pass the assessment, you will be the captain of the order. Li Wang's heart trembled uncontrollably, and he looked at Jiang Chen with emotion. He took a deep breath, calmed down the uncontrollable excitement in his heart, clasped his fists and said slowly, I will definitely live up to the Marshal's expectations. Chapter 653 Dangang Plantation. Dangang Plantation. The traces of the war were fading. The survivors carried the bodies of their compatriots from the ruins and buried them on the hillside north of the plantation. On the street outside the barbed wire, zombies staggered and wandered unconsciously among the ruins. After days of artillery fire, the besieging regular Imperial army blew up their walls several times, cut the barbed wire, and led the zombies into the plantation, turning the siege into a melee between people and zombies. In the melee, more than 1,000 slaves died. With limited ammunition, they were able to control their casualties to less than 1,000 in the exchange of fire with the regular army. It must be said that these slaves are still very capable. Of course, there is also the reason for the NAC airstrikes. Because of concerns about the NAC airstrikes, the Second Army of the Empire has been unable to concentrate its forces to launch a general attack on the plantation. Until the fall of the Imperial capital, the Second Army, out of fear of the power of the NAC, made the decision to retreat northward and form its own gate, and the siege of Dangang Plantation finally ended. Since they didn't know where to go anyway, 1,000 survivors chose to disband, while the remaining more than 7,000 survivors gathered together and, under the leadership of the leader they elected, rebuilt their own homes on this land. One morning, a jeep rushed out of the street, knocked over a few dull-witted zombies, and braked to a stop at the entrance of the plantation. 2 machine guns on the top of the wall immediately aimed at them. The survivors with scarves on their faces and rifles in their hands stepped forward and knocked on the car window twice. This place is not open to the public. Please leave. Glancing at the black muzzle of the gun on the wall, Li Wang took a deep breath, tapped on the car door, and lowered the window. I have no ill intentions. I'm here on behalf of the NAC and hope to see your leader. Li Wang originally thought that these people would welcome him in respectfully, but he didn't expect that the man's face changed and his eyes looked at him with a bit of vigilance. This contrast caught him off guard. The soldier at the gate pressed his collar, walked to the side, spoke to his superior through the headset, and soon returned to the car window. I can take you to see our leader, but we have to search you. Li Wang raised his eyebrows and was about to get angry, but thinking of the test Jiang Chen mentioned, he took a deep breath and suppressed his temper. Of course. After saying that, he pushed open the car door and walked out, stood in front of the soldier, and spread his hands. I swear I don't carry any weapons. The soldier ignored him, stepped forward and simply searched him, and after confirming that he had no weapons, he took him into the plantation. Crossing the muddy path, they came to a repaired 3-story office building. Stepping into the door, Li Wang saw the leader of these survivors. His eyes were as sharp as a knife, as if they could pierce into people's hearts. His thin face bore the mark of a slave, but from his straight spine, Li Wang could not see any humility that a slave should have. This man is not easy to deal with. This was Li Wang's first thought. After the uprising broke out, the spies who instigated the uprising evacuated the plantation in the Malay. No one here could help him. The only intelligence he had was the latest one from a week ago. Aha, let me see who is here. The NAC envoy. You finally remembered our neighbor. The leader walked in front of Li Wang, squinted his eyes, and looked him in the eyes aggressively. Tell me, your purpose. Li Wang's eyes did not dodge, paused for a moment, and spoke in a soothing tone. We are allies, aren't we? Using us to contain the Second Legion of the Empire, using our blood to pave the way for your victory. You call this an act of alliance? The leader laughed, and spread his hands. Then what? You who took over the imperial capital are going to take over the slaves of the imperial capital? You misunderstood. I tell you, we will never accept anyone's slavery, even if you are strong enough. The leader lowered his voice and spoke hoarsely beside him, word by word. Having just escaped from the shackles of slavery, these poor people are more sensitive and conceited than anyone else. Although they only hold crudely made rifles in their hands and have very few bullets in the ammunition depot, they still believe that they can defend their freedom with their own beliefs. They are sensitive and suspicious of, and hostile to any form of rule. At this time, they can't listen to anything. We should use the rockets of the order to make these people sober up. This is Li Wang's only thought at the moment. We won't do this, Li Wang said in the most gentle tone possible. But who can guarantee that you won't do this? The leader asked in an exaggerated tone. We have our own hands and feet. We can grow mutant fruits and camu resin. Why do we have to join you? We can purchase your mutant fruits and camu resin. The federal market is also okay. You are not the only one. The negotiations were deadlocked from the beginning, but fortunately, Li Wang noticed the problem. Have people from the Federation been here? The leader spread his hands and responded to his non-committal expression. Not denying at this time often means acquiescence. Li Wang took a deep breath slowly, sorted out the thoughts in his brain, and spoke calmly. Can you give me 5 minutes? In the command post, Jiang Chen was writing at his desk. Regarding the development of NAC in Hancheng, he was making a general plan for some detailed issues. Although the model of the 6th block can provide some reference, it cannot be completely copied here, and some subtle adjustments are still needed. For example, elections, such as laws. At this time, the door opened, and Wang Xiaowu walked into the office. Are you busy? I'm almost done. What's the matter? Jiang Chen stopped writing, looked at Wang Xiaowu, and asked with a pleasant face. Nothing special. I just want to ask you, have you found a candidate for the captain? Wang Xiaowu asked with a smile, after closing the door. The situation in Hancheng is basically stable. After signing the border opening agreement with the Federation, it can be said that NAC has basically established a firm foothold here. It is almost the end of July. I have been away for a month and a half. It is almost time to go back in early August. When Jiang Chen came, he said that he would select the captain of the order before the end of the expedition. After all, as a marshal and a corps commander, it is impossible for them to always serve as both captain and deputy captain. I have one, but it is not confirmed yet. Hearing that Jiang Chen already had a clue, Wang Xiaowu breathed a sigh of relief and said with a grin, I thought you forgot about it. I'm relieved that you remembered it. Okay, you still think I will let you stay in this deputy captain position forever? Hurry up and pack up. It won't be long before you have to roll back to the second corps. Jiang Chen scolded with a smile. Yes, sir. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 654, Honoring the Captain. Good news soon came from Dangang Plantation. In just 2 days, Li Wang successfully persuaded the local survivors to bring the largest survivor settlement east of Ganjiang River, except for the gymnasium, under the jurisdiction of NAC. As an economic zone of NAC, Dangang Plantation is managed by the executive officer stationed in Hangcheng by NAC. The leader is elected by local residents and enjoys a high degree of autonomy. The current leader, Zhang Weiping, continues to serve as the first leader of Dangang Plantation. The term of office is changed every 5 years. The chip on the back of the neck recorded Li Wang's actions in the past 2 days. After retrieving the relevant data, Jiang Chen nodded with satisfaction. Even with his critical eyes, he gave this guy a high score of 90 points, which shows that his execution is indeed good. By the way, the full score is 100. Order is on NAC's aircraft carrier, and as the captain, you are the commander of this aircraft carrier. During the expedition, you have a high degree of operational autonomy, and the choices you make will ultimately affect the interests of NAC in the expedition area. Therefore, whether you can represent the highest interests of NAC is the most critical part of the assessment. I'm honored that you have passed the assessment. On the deck of the airship, under the attention of all the crew members, Jiang Chen took off the golden medal on his chest and put it on Li Wang's chest with his own hands, next to the knight's medal. Under the sunlight, the badge shone with golden light. In the center of the shield-shaped outline, the silhouette of order is engraved, and the 2 interlaced muskets below symbolize conquest and order. From now on, he will serve as the banner of the NAC expedition, expand the territory for NAC, and spread the will of NAC to further places. Feeling the heavy weight, Li Wang straightened his back, his body trembling slightly, and the excitement on his face was simply indescribable. After putting on the medal, Jiang Chen patted his shoulder, looked into his eyes, and said seriously, "From today on, this order is handed over to you. I will definitely live up to the mission." Li Wang shouted at the top of his voice, turning his excitement into volume. "Good. Ambitious. I look forward to your performance." Jiang Chen laughed. The bugler blew the military music, and the rough and melodious metal sound echoed in the sky. Order fired a cannon at the lake, waiting for the new captain to take office. On the deck, Jiang Chen opened a full 10 boxes of beer, asked the cooks to prepare 8 tables of delicious dishes, and announced the start of the banquet amid the cheers of more than 50 airship crew members. The feeling of drinking and eating meat at an altitude of thousands of meters is really unique. Jiang Chen drank more than a dozen bottles by himself, and was carried back to the room by the brothers of the guards with burps and drunkenness. The newly promoted captain was a young man named Lu Ze. It was the first time he encountered a drunk marshal. He didn't know what to do, so he had to run to find his old boss Li Wang, who was still fighting at the wine table, and asked him what to do. "Nonsense, he was drunk. Hiccups. I don't know what to do. Why don't you let a woman deal with it? Do you think the marshal will want a man standing next to him when he wakes up?" Hiccups. Stupid. Obviously Li Wang was also drunk, talking nonsense, and then pushed Lu Ze away. Sorry to disturb the old boss's celebration banquet again. Lu Ze remembered the advice and ran back to the captain's lounge with a smile and tears before the official handover of the position. This spacious room was still Jiang Chen's exclusive bedroom. "Captain, the boss has vomited twice." As soon as he came back, the younger brother came up to complain. "Hangover medicine, did you give it to the marshal?" Lu Ze said with a headache. "I took it, but the effect is not obvious." "Captain Lu, the marshal vomited again." A younger brother screamed in the room. "What should I do?" Lu Ze looked around for a moment and suddenly thought of someone. He immediately said, "Where is Sun Jiao? Let her take care of the marshal. It's not convenient for us to help the marshal take a bath. She can do it. Xiao Wu has already gone to find her. She's not on the boat. There are only men on this boat. Where can we find a woman? The crew are all drinking, and there is no way to lower the altitude of the airship now. Otherwise, find a man to help the marshal change clothes and take a bath." "But what if the marshal is not satisfied? This is my first day in office." In a hurry, Lu Ze suddenly thought of someone else and hurriedly grabbed the younger brother next to him. "Go to the command room and find Staff Officer Han." "Han? Staff Officer Han? Can it work?" Thinking of the stern female boss, the soldier shuddered. "Stop talking nonsense. Just go when I tell you to go," Lu Ze said with a stiff face. "Yes, yes." The soldier also took the order with a stiff face and ran towards the command room. "All of you come out. Leave this to Staff Officer Han. We'll stay aside." After ordering to find Staff Officer Han, Lu Ze called out several guards who were serving Jiang Chen by the bed. But is it really okay to leave the marshal alone? A younger brother asked hesitantly. You are so stupid. If you were the boss, would you want a beautiful woman or a grown man to serve you? Stop talking nonsense. Listen to brother Lu. Let's go. Another guard urged and pulled his teammates out of the door. Lu Ze didn't know what to say. When Staff Officer Han came later, he couldn't think of how to explain, so he simply didn't explain and directly threw the mess into her hands, pulling his subordinates away quickly. Soon, Han Junhe walked to the door of the captain's lounge, looking at Jiang Chen sleeping soundly in the room, and the faded coat next to him, and the stains on the collar. She frowned slightly. Why is he so drunk? How much did he drink? No one answered. Han Junhe turned around and saw that the guard who brought her here was gone. Even the door of the lounge had been closed at some point. Han Junhe looked at the sleeping face expressionlessly. She was silent for a long time, sighed, walked forward wordlessly, put him on her shoulders, and dragged him into the bathroom. There was no extra emotion, she just simply felt. Anyway, she couldn't leave it alone. After taking off Jiang Chen's stained shirt, Han Junhe looked at the strong chest expressionlessly. Although her heart was beating fast, she didn't have any emotions to match it. Dopamine secretion is accelerated. It's incredible. Human emotions rely on hormone secretion, but the psychic political commissar can cut off the connection between the two. Han Junhe gently tapped Jiang Chen's chest with her index finger, feeling the scorching temperature and the strong and incongruous peace in her heart. It's really a disgusting feeling. Han Junhe shook her head, retracted her index finger, and prepared to help him change his clothes. But at this time, looking at the sweat beads sliding down his muscles, she couldn't help but think about it. He sweated so much. Should I help him take a bath first, and then change into clean clothes? From a rational point of view, it seems that taking a bath would be better. Otherwise, even if he changed into clean clothes, they would be soaked with sweat in a while. Thinking of this, the retracted index finger rested on the button on his chest. After unbuttoning it, Han Junhe put her coat in the basket next to her. In order to avoid getting her clothes wet, she took off her black silk stockings and officer uniform, leaving only a thin white shirt on her upper body. Holding Jiang Chen's arm, Han Junhe felt the temperature on her back getting even hotter. She didn't know if it was because there was less cloth between them or because he was sweating. Recalling the experience in the small dark room, she felt that the heat from her back had subsided a lot. Was it because her body temperature had risen? She didn't quite understand this feeling. After putting warm water in the bathtub and finally getting Jiang Chen into the bathtub, she breathed a sigh of relief. She felt like a heavy burden had been lifted. After picking up a wet towel and simply wiping him off, Han Junhe was about to turn around and get a bath towel, but her hand on the edge of the bathtub was held. Han Junhe turned around and looked at Jiang Chen inquiringly, but she met a pair of burning pupils. A charming atmosphere lingered between the two. Although she couldn't understand this inexplicable atmosphere, she could feel her heartbeat gradually accelerating and her body temperature gradually rising. Feeling the heat from her wrist, for some reason, she didn't have the idea of resisting. Suddenly, the drunk Jiang Chen said nothing and suddenly pulled her wrist. She didn't react for a moment and fell into the bathtub. Plop, the water splashed everywhere, soaking her shirt and one-step skirt. She stared at Jiang Chen with wide eyes, and a rare look of disbelief appeared in her eyes. The frosted glass on the door showed two warm outlines, and then merged into one. The sound of waves hitting the rocks came from the bathroom, accompanied by monotonous beast-like roars. The bathtub, toilet, wash basin, the entrance of the room, the desk, the roll of bedding in the middle of the bedroom. The embers of the battlefield can be seen everywhere. The expressionless pretty face also gradually melted from the eternal ice, turning into mud like spring rain, rippling in the darkening night. Rolling on the ground to ask for votes. There is no double at the end of the month. Friends who still have votes, please vote for Morningstar. Morningstar thanks you. Chapter 655 Quantum Computer Research Institute. Because the first time was in the bathtub, there was no trace of blood. The only evidence that could prove what happened last night was the pain that had not yet faded. Feeling the unforgettable pain, Han Jianhua felt that her heart was inexplicably empty, as if something was missing, but also full. It was hard to describe. The strong arms were a little tight, so she moved her neck slightly, adjusted a slightly more comfortable posture, and continued to feel the indescribable aftertaste. If she could get from this warmth. Of course, she also knew that, if she expected such a simple method to remove the shackles of the spiritual political commissar, it would be too much to underestimate the power of technology. She lay flat on her back with her eyes empty. Feeling a little tired, Han Jianhua temporarily gave up thinking. The warm and heavy breath hit her ears, making her feel a little itchy, but inexplicably reassuring. It is simply unreasonable. It is so stupid to rely on the environment because of the temperature. Thinking of this, her consciousness gradually became foggy. She closed her eyes in the early morning for the first time in a long time and took a nap. It was not until noon that the two woke up under the smiling gaze of Sun Jiao. Opening his eyes and looking at that gentle smile, Jiang Chen always felt like he was caught in bed. Boss, you really can't blame me. We wanted to find Miss Sun at that time, but she was not on the airship. Lu Ze defended himself with a bitter face. Then you can't find Jun. Staff Officer Han, just find someone to change my clothes. Jiang Chen scolded unhappily. Although Han Jianhua didn't say anything after getting up, didn't show anger, and didn't even have any extra expression, Jiang Chen always felt that he owed her. Then, the next time the marshal is drunk, I will find you a man. Lu Ze said carefully. Let's go find Staff Officer Han. After driving Lu Ze away, Jiang Chen packed his luggage and got off the airship, officially moving the headquarters from the air to the ground. When he walked into the newly built command post, he happened to run into Sun Jiao who was waiting at the door. Still wearing the same long dress, Jiao looked at Jiang Chen with a smile. Have you packed it, brother-in-law? Yeah, packed it. Jiang Chen replied somewhat awkwardly. Brother-in-law looks very nervous. Really? Haha, ha ha ha. Jiang Chen laughed dryly a few times, but it was obviously not fooled. Sun Jiao walked slowly to the side, took the luggage from Jiang Chen's hand, and whispered in his ear. I promised my sister that I would keep an eye on you outside. This is an accident. Jiang Chen looked away embarrassedly. Oh. Then what are you going to do to Sister Jianhua? Although she still had that faint smile, Sun Jiao's eyes were a little serious. The silence between the two lasted for half a minute. Although he knew that his behavior was greedy, Jiang Chen still spoke out his true thoughts. I will be responsible for her. Humph. Sun Jiao turned around, left Jiang Chen, and walked into the hall. However, before she took 2 steps, her skirt swayed gently, and she quickly turned around and looked back with a smile. You still have some conscience. If you just ignore her, I will be disappointed. You are really disappointed in a strange place. Jiang Chen said embarrassedly, with her index finger on her lips, still with that gentle smile. Sun Jiao tilted her head unconsciously. Is there? After nearly half a month of investigation, the specific location of the Quantum Computer Research Institute was finally determined. The target is located in the high-tech park in the Eastern District. Because the main building is located underground, the post-war attention rate is relatively high. Although it is not far from the center of the nuclear bomb explosion, the main building has not suffered structural damage. It is precisely because of this that this place has become a nest of alien species, inhabited by a large number of dangerous species called Piano Queen, a spider mutated from a jumping spider. This head-sized spider does not rely on venom or teeth to hunt, but uses its spider silk to lay a death trap, waiting for its prey to fall into the trap. The spider silk, which is similar to the structure of graphene rings, has the toughness of nanomaterials, and is almost undetectable in low light conditions. After passing through the loose spider web, the small fly can even continue to fly 2 or 3 meters, and then be neatly divided into several sections. Even if it is a death claw, if it strays into their territory, it is hard to guarantee that it will not capsize in the gutter. It is hard to imagine that this 2 centimeters tall little guy can evolve into such a deadly creature. However, the weaknesses of these piano queens are also obvious. Once the trap is discovered, it loses its function as a trap, and they have almost no active offensive ability. When facing the NAC soldiers holding flamethrowers, they have almost no ability to fight back and are cleared out of the mother nest. After clearing the alien species in the building, the scouts began to search the interior of the building and finally determined that the quantum computer core laboratory was located on the last floor of the basement. Next is the highlight. Buildings like this that preserve the core technology of PAC naturally have a high security level. Even now, more than 20 years after the war, the security robots lurking in the corners of the building still maintain their perfect functions, waiting for the intruders who overestimate their capabilities to wake them up. After confirming the security level in the building, Jiang Chen immediately ordered a strong attack. Get the password? Are you kidding? After so many years, where can I get the password? As for hacking, don't even think about it. Showing hacking skills in a place where quantum computers are studied is like showing off your sword in front of Guangdong. The network security level here is at least twice that of a bank. Even if Yao came, it would be useless. Lu Ze took the guards to go there in person. According to the plan formulated by Han Junhe, they forcibly blew up the side wall of the institute and broke into the building. The azure laser bullets flew between the corridors and collided with the orange-yellow rain of bullets. The security system, based on quantum computers, has a strong information suppression capability, and the soldiers who broke into the building cannot use support weapons such as drones. The security robots in the corridor were indeed very powerful. Even the EMP weapons could only cause a short pause on them, but could not directly paralyze them. Jiang Chen finally understood why the Zhao group had not been able to get a few quantum computers for so long. It turned out that this thing was really not that easy to get. Fortunately, the soldiers of the Royal Guards were strong in combat. With the support of the expeditionary soldiers, it took nearly a whole day for the NAC people to finally break through the security system of the building and reach the laboratory on the ground floor. Is this the production line of the quantum computer? Jiang Chen looked speechlessly at the production equipment displayed on the open space like a small mountain. My goodness, just putting them together in such a square shape would occupy thousands of square meters. In order to move these equipment out of the underground, the researchers of Shelter Number 27 also took an airship to Hangzhou in person and explained to the soldiers clearly which parts could be dismantled and which parts could not be moved. Parts were disassembled and packed, all data was copied, and not a single table or chair was spared. Under the command of the researcher, the NAC soldiers moved everything from the laboratory like locusts. The scientist in charge of quantum computer research was named Zhang Fan. He was standing next to Jiang Chen at this moment, responsible for giving him a simple technical explanation. This does not include some general electronic parts, computer shells and other equipment. Just give me some specific numbers. How many people are needed to build a factory, and how much land is occupied? Jiang Chen glanced at Zhang Fan and said, the specific situation is hard to say. Including the production of those general electronic parts, if 50% automation is achieved, the entire factory area will be about 165 acres, and there will be 5,000 skilled workers. Zhang Fan made a conservative estimate. Where can I find so many skilled workers? Jiang Chen said with a headache. It would take all the skilled workers in the entire 6th block to make up this number. Actually, Marshall, don't think it's too difficult. Knowledge can be quickly acquired through the virtual reality education system, and there are a large number of highly educated laborers stored in the unopened shelters in Wanghai City alone. Zhang Fan said. Shelters are too unreliable. It's hard to say when a new one will appear. Let's find a way to quickly acquire knowledge. How long will it take to train a qualified technical worker using the virtual reality education system? After a pause, Jiang Chen added, start from scratch. Maybe a year. Too long. Jiang Chen shook his head. It will take about a year to digest the technology in this production line, which is not too long. Zhang Fan explained. NAC has a big gap in quantum computers. Do you have any good ideas to solve the production problem as soon as possible? Jiang Chen asked with a frown. Not disappointing Jiang Chen's expectations, Zhang Fan nodded, but he was a little hesitant when he spoke. Of course, as long as we have the relevant technology of quantum computers, we can use 3D printing to carry out small-scale production. However, the disadvantages of this method are also obvious. For this kind of product with many parts and high technical content, 3D printing not only has low production efficiency, but also costs at least 3 times more than conventional mass production technology. 3 times? Give me a rough number. Jiang Chen said in a deep voice. The budget for a standard civilian grade machine is at least 300,000 credit points. Hearing Zhang Fan's answer, Jiang Chen's mouth twitched. Good man, this war has only cost about 400,000 credit points so far. However, no matter how painful it is, the money should be spent. We should find a way to get the required materials from the real world, which should save a lot of money. If the production problem of quantum computers is solved, the business expansion speed of the real world on the virtual reality network will undoubtedly be much faster. Don't worry about the money, make 2 first. 2. Zhang Fan thought he had heard it wrong, but when he saw Jiang Chen nod, he confirmed that he had not heard it wrong. How long will it take? Jiang Chen asked. We should be able to make 1 in a month, and the second one will take another half a month. Zhang Fan answered affirmatively. Then I'll leave this matter to you. Do it as soon as possible. And you should also worry about the training of technical workers. After instructing Zhang Fan on this matter, Jiang Chen left the open space full of equipment and walked towards the command post. On the way, he happened to meet Zhao Chenwu, who was walking towards the command post, so he stopped and said hello. However, he didn't expect that Zhao Chenwu was looking for him. What's the matter? So anxious? Jiang Chen looked at him and asked. Zhao Chenwu's face was gloomy, and he said simply, the people from the Federation, they took action. Chapter 656 Dumping. Since the border opening agreement was opened, caravans from the Federation have been pouring into the Qingshan Stadium. After being closed for more than a decade, the crowded and poor imperial capital, now Qingshan Town, finally ushered in the long-awaited prosperity. However, the harmonious economic and trade exchanges only lasted for 2 days. On the 3rd day, a large number of trucks from several large chambers of commerce in the Federation suddenly appeared in the market of Qingshan Town. In front of several small stalls, a large sign was erected with the words "Big Sale" written on it. At the same time, several vendors in front of the stalls opened their throats and shouted, "Cheap nutritional mixtures, all kinds of them, clearance sale. Nutritional mixtures 30% cheaper than the market price. Don't miss it. If you pass by, ours is 40% cheaper. Is there anyone cheaper than us? Come and buy it. If you miss this opportunity, you will have to wait until next year. Buy. Anyway, this thing is a necessity, with a long shelf life, so it's good to buy more, and keep them at home. Such a large-scale price reduction, where can you wait?" Passersby saw this, and came forward to watch. Amid the shouts of competing price reductions, they took out the subcrystals in their pockets, and rushed to buy these cheap nutritional mixtures. Faced with this sudden price reduction trend, other stall owners were dumbfounded by the empty stalls. Lower the price together? But the prices offered by these merchants from the Federation are close to their cost price. Some merchants even found out that their cost price had been broken through. Instead of selling the nutritional mixture now, it is better to buy some at the Federation stalls. No one expected that this little gadget that can be seen everywhere would cause such a big disturbance. It's not that no one has come up with an idea. Several major retailers of nutritional mixtures in Qingshan Town gathered together to discuss and jointly funded to buy out the nutritional mixtures in the hands of these federal merchants, and then slowly wait for the excess nutritional mixtures to be digested by the market, and then let the market price return to rationality. However, ideals are beautiful, but the reality is cruel. Several retailers took out a total of 100,000 subcrystals and bought the nutritional mixtures in the inventory of federal merchants. However, these retailers did not breathe a sigh of relief. In just 1 day, batches of nutritional mixtures were pulled into Qingshan Town by trucks. Large-scale dumping is still continuing. In just 2 days, according to statistics, the number of nutritional mixtures per capita in Qingshan Town has reached nearly 600, which is almost enough for the survivors to eat for more than half a year. Now, even the federal merchants can't sell it. Not to mention the extremely saturated market, local residents had few subcrystals on hand because of the crazy buying. After the madness, there is depression. The Steel Gear Chamber of Commerce is very satisfied with the current situation in Kingshan Town. As the behind-the-scenes supporter of the federal president, it was he who single-handedly facilitated the peace with NAC, the free trade agreement of mutual exchange, and the current dumping of nutritional mixtures. Mr. Jiang, I wish you to become the president of the entire Hangzhou area. Hahaha, you flatter me too much, boss Liu. Without your help, how could I get such an honor? At the wine table, Jiang frequently toasted the businessman known as boss Liu. Although he is the president, he knows very well that at least half of his current position is due to the credit of the man in front of him. So in front of this financial sponsor, he didn't have the presidential airs at all. NAC conquered the imperial capital, but never thought that in the end it would make wedding clothes for our federation. TSK, it's really ironic. Liu Hong, known as Boss Liu, leaned back in his chair, shaking his wine glass, and said leisurely, "What are your plans for the next step?" asked the president. "The market in Kingshan Town is in chaos now. We just need to wait for those local merchants to go bankrupt, and then we can reach out and buy the farmland and processing plants they are selling off." Liu Hong smiled sinisterly, narrowing his eyes. "Do you need my cooperation?" The president smiled. "No, now we just need to finish the chess game step by step." Liu Hong said slowly. "Are these nutritional mixtures really okay?" "Of course not. No matter how you check, these nutritional mixtures are genuine goods, not inferior garbage. As long as it is a survivor settlement of a certain scale, such large quantities of goods will be sampled for quality inspection. After all, some Class D nutritional mixtures are made of the flesh and blood of alien species and zombies. Who dares to eat them without testing the toxicity? And it is not ruled out that the predators pretended to be caravans and poisoned the nutritional mixtures. And because of the large-scale dumping of federal merchants, the quality inspection personnel of Kingshan Town have also increased the inspection of incoming nutritional mixtures to prevent toxic goods from being mixed in. If it were the leaders of other small settlements, they would wake up laughing in their dreams when they saw that the nutritional mixture in their market was so cheap. But for the larger survivor settlements, excessive nutritional mixtures can not only make people full, but also make people overfed. Currently, 3 nutritional mixture retailers that have a cooperative relationship with our group have gone bankrupt. If the price of nutritional mixtures continues to be low, considering the profit margin, we will have to close the 100-acre mutant fruit plantation in Jinxi Lake Farm. Of course, I won't do this, although other small shareholders have strongly urged me to do so. Zhao Chenwu said. What do they want to do? Jiang Chen frowned slightly. Through nutritional mixtures, they disrupted our market order. Not only nutritional mixtures, but also because of their large-scale dumping. Our food business has also declined by 28% year-on-year in the past few days, and the turnover of other non-related industries has also declined to a certain extent. Zhao Chenwu said. Through nutritional mixtures, they plundered consumers' money and forcibly squeezed out the market's consumption potential. Not only nutritional mixtures were affected, but also the sales of instant noodles, compressed biscuits, canned food and other replaceable foods that had previously sold well were greatly affected. There are also weapons, bullets, and even clothes that are not related at all. Not only that, the transaction price of the Jinxi Lake farmland ownership certificate in the exchange of the 6th block bank also fell. After all, the Federation has such cheap nutritional mixtures, and the price of mutant fruits as raw materials has also been affected. A chain reaction? It has affected the 6th block 600 kilometers away. Jiang Chen said thoughtfully, but I don't understand why they can afford so many nutritional mixtures. Dumping at a loss, don't they worry about losing money and going bankrupt? They can use the subcrystals obtained from dumping at a loss to purchase rapidly depreciating land. In this way, they will not lose money, but may make a lot of money. Hearing what Zhao Chenwu said, Jiang Chen suddenly understood. As expected of an equally cunning businessman, this guy saw through the conspiracy of the federal merchants at a glance. As the subcrystals circulating in Hangzhou decreased, the purchasing power of subcrystals was naturally forced to rise. The depreciation of cultivated land caused by the dumping of nutritional mixtures has enabled them to buy more land from farmers, merchants who have reduced production or gone bankrupt. Eventually, they will monopolize the production of Hangcheng mutant fruit, and then monopolize the market of nutritional mixture. By then, the price of the nutritional mixture will be decided by the merchants of the Federation. Since Jiang Chen already knows their plan, he will certainly not let them get their wish. He already has an idea in mind, and a smile appeared on his lips. Full pot? Haha, I guarantee that they will lose everything. It seems that you already have a countermeasure, so I won't show off. Hearing what Jiang Chen said, Zhao Chenwu also laughed. Of course there is a countermeasure, but it requires your cooperation. Appreciate the marshal's orders at any time. Chapter 657 Exchange Rate Weapon. The next morning, merchants from the Federation came to the market early in the morning, leaning against the deserted stalls and smiling at the angry merchants from Qingshan Town. Although they belonged to different chambers of commerce, they were all inextricably linked to the same name, the Steel Gear Chamber of Commerce. Li Yujin, a salesman of the Steel Gear Chamber of Commerce, entered the Chamber of Commerce through his nepotism with the boss Li Yuhong, but his outstanding business strength was immediately recognized by the shareholders of the Chamber of Commerce, and he was repeatedly entrusted with important tasks by the Chamber of Commerce. At this moment, as one of the masterminds of planning this dumping incident, he was leaning against the door of the grocery store belonging to the Steel Gear Chamber of Commerce, looking at the depressed market with a playful look. To be honest, although he was sure to win this trade war, he was still a little uneasy. After all, NAC is a violent agency. If he can't win economically, he can't do anything about it. Although doing so will cause great damage to NAC's influence and credibility, the Steel Gear Chamber of Commerce will undoubtedly suffer certain losses. Boss Li Yuhang judged that Jiang Chen would not sacrifice the influence of the entire NAC for the market in Qingshan Town. But to be honest, as one of the masterminds, he was very uncertain. The iron-faced militiamen held the entrance of the market and signaled with their eyes that the local merchants who wanted to cause trouble should not be impulsive. Although they already knew some inside information and were also indignant about the actions of these federal merchants, as soldiers, they were powerless to do anything about it. Their mission was to maintain market law and order, not financial order. As the price of nutritional mixture fell, the land price of Jinxie Lake Farm fell accordingly, and it has recorded a 30% drop from 3 days ago to now. The nutritional mixture that the federal government had hoarded for 2 years was sold intensively within a few days. Although they lost nearly 1 million subcrystals in this business, as long as they quickly sold these appreciated subcrystals for land, they would get a profit 10 times the loss. There were not many nutritional mixtures in the truck behind them. But it didn't matter, no one would buy that thing now. The price of B-grade nutrient mixture has fallen to the floor price of 10 crystals for 1, while the C, D, and E quality nutrient mixtures synthesized from heterogeneous flesh and blood below B have become a thing that no one cares about. The current situation is that for every ton of mutant fruit produced by farmers, the net loss is 10 crystals, and for every ton of B-grade nutrient mixture produced by processing plants, the net loss is 1,100 crystals. The nutrient mixture processing plants within Hangcheng have completely stopped production, and about 600 workers have been laid off. The drop in the price of nutrient mixtures has led to a drop in the prices of a series of commodities such as rifles, bullets, protective gear, and medicines, but this has not improved the lives of local people, because they no longer have the ability to buy. The reason for the price drop is simply that there are fewer crystals circulating in Qingshan Town. These cheap necessities are usually bought by merchants outside, and 80% of these necessities flow to the Federation. Soon Qingshan Town will usher in an economic depression, and people here will find that the things in the market are obviously very cheap, but they just can't afford them. However, these merchants from the Federation did not last for long. Shortly after the market opened, the people of Zhao's group put up a sign in the market. B-level nutritional mixture for credit points. 1 credit point for 10 nutritional mixtures. B-level nutritional mixture is the biggest part of the food consumption market. Its raw material is mutant fruit, and its output is much more stable than other types. Basically, its price determines the price of other types of nutritional mixtures. As for credit points, people in Hangcheng are not unfamiliar with them. In the area controlled by NAC, As long as the signal can be received, they can access their bank accounts in the 6th block through EP, interact with other accounts, and complete payment and collection operations. In addition to electronic currency, banks in the 6th block also issued a certain amount of paper money for merchants to use in other places. It is precisely because of this that NAC paper money can also be seen in other areas outside Suzhou and Hangzhou province. As long as the caravan is heading east, they all recognize this thing. At present, the recognized exchange rate between credit points and subcrystals is 1:5, and it may be 1:4 or 2:5 in farther places. However, in Hancheng, the standard exchange rate of 1:5 is still used. Under normal circumstances, the price of a B-level nutritional mixture is 0.5 subcrystals, and the current market price is 0.2, which is equivalent to 0.04 credit points. But what does the Jiao Group mean by this? Buying a nutritional mixture at the price of 0.1 credit points? Is it planning to forcefully raise the price of nutritional mixtures? Liu Jin sneered. It's too late to do anything now. Even if they spare no expense and feed this already indigestible market with stomach medicine, it will be useless. The survivors will be happy to sell the nutritional mixture at the price of 0.1 credit points, but will they be happy to buy it at the price of 0.1 credit points? And they have achieved the goal of raising the value of subcrystals. Not to mention that the survivors here are not used to the currency of credit points. Even if everyone recognizes the value of credit points, high-value subcrystals are still the strongest currency. Unless NAC transports subcrystals here from other places, one truck after another, and forcibly injects them into the market, no matter what they do, it will be in vain. Liu. Mr. Liu. What's the matter? Liu Jin looked at the shop assistant who came over happily. He was in a good mood now. He would soon lead the Steel Gear Chamber of Commerce to fire the first shot in monopolizing the nutritional mixture market in Hancheng. However, just as he was imagining what kind of praise the Chamber of Commerce would give him, after returning to Hezhang City, his clerk trembled and handed over the newspaper in his hand. What is this? Liu Jin frowned slightly and took the newspaper from the clerk. The newspaper of the 6th block, a scanned copy of our caravan over there. Liu Jin opened the newspaper and slowly scanned the contents of the newspaper. However, when he saw the headline for the first time, his heart suddenly skipped a beat. 10 alien ranches in Wanghai City announced an increase in production at the same time, and the value of subcrystals may usher in the biggest drop this quarter. The bank in the 6th block raised the official exchange rate between credit points and subcrystals from the original 1:5 to the current 1:10. At the same time, NAC issued an announcement that due to the overcapacity of the subcrystal ranch, subcrystals are currently in oversupply in the 6th block. In order to encourage investors to use credit points with stronger purchasing power for settlement, all real estate transfer procedures within the coverage area of NAC signals must be carried out using credit points. If you insist on using subcrystals for transfer, high value added tax will be levied on both buyers and sellers. Seeing this, Liu Jin's forehead was sweating as he looked at the Jiao Group's store where the crowd gradually gathered. They actually took action directly on the exchange rate. It's so shameless. This is not over yet. The combination of punches played by NAC directly blocked their possibility of buying up the real estate in the hands of bankrupts. Apart from anything else, in the past 5 days, they used the subcrystals that they had hoarded to make losses and cashed in the nutrient mixtures, and they directly smashed them in their hands. At this time, even if they held tons of subcrystals, no one would trade with them unless they paid a higher price and sold the subcrystals in their hands at an exchange rate of 115 or even 120. No one would use the credit points in their hands to exchange for the subcrystals in their hands when the subcrystals were facing a sharp depreciation. The Gear Chamber of Commerce has been completely stuck on subcrystals. It's all over. Liu Jin sat down on the ground dejectedly, and he felt his brain was a little dizzy. Pushing away the guy who tried to help him up, he crawled back to the store and took out the phone from the drawer. He now needed to get in touch with the boss as soon as possible. At this moment, Liu Hong, the boss of the Steel Gear Chamber of Commerce, also sat dejectedly on the office chair, staring blankly at the ceiling opposite the office. A piercing ring came to his ears, but he didn't want to answer it. Just half an hour ago, the wealth in the hands of the Steel Gear Chamber of Commerce shrank by half, and the shareholders had already bombarded his phone. He considered various situations, including NAC's high-priced purchase of nutritional mixtures from civilians at a premium to forcibly stabilize prices. He also considered that NAC broke the free trade agreement and followed the empire's practice of imposing high tariffs on foreign merchants to raise the cost of living for local people and avoid market depression. However, he did not consider that the people of NAC would actually cut the currency itself. And this knife directly cut off the arms of the Steel Gear Chamber of Commerce. It was so sudden that it caught people off guard. After a long silence, Liu Hang silently took out a cigarette from his pocket and lit it. He rarely smoked in the office. Although he was the most powerful person in the entire Federation, he had always strictly controlled himself. But now, he needed to relax properly. Closing his eyes, Liu Hang leaned back in his office chair and began to think about the next countermeasures. However, to his despair, he racked his brains and couldn't think of any good solution. If NAC was determined to promote the new currency in Hangzhou, even if the Steel Gear Chamber of Commerce controlled more subcrystals, it would not be able to withstand the weapon of the exchange rate, waiting for the value of subcrystals to return. They couldn't wait. At this moment, his secretary pushed open the door and walked in. Looking at the pretty figure under the suit, Liu Hang felt annoyed for the first time. "What's the matter? I told you to let me be quiet, boss." Secretary Zioru swallowed. "Hurry up." Liu Hang pinched his eyebrows and said impatiently, "Our third largest shareholder sold its shares to NAC through the Federal Stock Exchange." Zioru said quickly. In an instant, Liu Jin's eyes turned red, and he stood up and grabbed his secretary's collar. "What did you say? Wukan, that bitch, sold her shares to NAC?" Yes. Zioru replied with difficulty breathing, trembling all over. Liu Jin let go of the secretary's collar and sat back in his office chair in a daze. Zioru coughed desperately and accidentally glanced at her boss. She was surprised to find that the high-spirited business leader seemed to have aged by a dozen years in an instant. Chapter 658 Peaceful Evolution. The exchange rate is like a knife. If used well, it can easily cut a large piece of meat from the players participating in this market. The merchants of the Federation attempted to completely shrink the mutant fruit planting area east of the Ganjiang River by dumping low-priced nutritional mixtures, and once again occupy a dominant position in the production of nutritional mixtures. This scene is quite similar to the Sino-US soybean war that occurred in the present world in 2004. However, what the Steel Gear Chamber of Commerce did not expect was that NAC would actually use the exchange rate as a lever to directly devalue the subcrystals in their hands. You know, NAC holds shares in all the heterogeneous ranches in NAC, and the subcrystals produced by these heterogeneous ranches account for 20% of the energy consumption in NAC. This is already a very high number. Devaluing subcrystals is like a double-edged sword, hurting others and yourself. The only difference is that NAC can bear this loss and wait until the value of subcrystals returns, but the Steel Gear Chamber of Commerce cannot wait unless they stop doing business and keep the subcrystals in the warehouse for a year or two. Unless NAC opens a special channel for them to exchange subcrystals for credit points, but this is obviously impossible. The Zhao Group collected about 500,000 boxes of nutrient mixtures in the market and transported them back to the 6th block via NAC's cargo airship. Now the permanent population of the 6th block has exceeded 100,000, and the floating population is more than 70,000, and there are hundreds of caravans traveling here. The daily consumption of nutrient mixtures is 3 times that of Hangzhou, and the excess nutrient mixtures will soon be transported out of the 6th block by other caravans. The trade road from Wanhai City to Su City and Hangzhou City has become a safe zone controlled by NAC, so the transportation cost is very low. Solving the indigestion of the Qingshan town market is not the end of the matter. The Steel Gear Chamber of Commerce is already in a desperate situation, and anyone can see that they are about to face a disastrous defeat. Jiang Chen then sent NAC merchants to register a shell company in the Federation, and then contacted shareholders other than the boss Liu Hang to acquire their shares, not using depreciated subcrystals, but using credit points. Those small shareholders were so eager to offer their shares with both hands. Although the more rational major shareholders were wary of this hostile acquisition proposal, they began to get restless when NAC raised the premium to 10% or even 20%. Should they hold on to the full warehouse of Asian Crystal Library and be trapped together with Boss LIU? Or take the money from NAC and make a comeback somewhere else? The smart people have made their choice. However, someone smarter made a choice that was beyond Jiang Chen's expectations. The most luxurious hotel in Kingshan Town. The guards outside the door are guarding, and inside the door. Chilu. Gulp. Ha. After drinking the water, the beauty took a breath and gently lifted the hair by her ears. Are you comfortable? Of course. Sitting by the window, Jiang Chen gently patted the pretty face that was looking up at her, with a playful smile on his lips. The beauty smiled charmingly, and the pink licked her lips vaguely. She stood up slowly, took the clothes from the side, and put them on her graceful figure. Surprising, I thought you would live in a luxurious palace. Jiang Chen smiled as he watched the delicate hands zip up his zipper. I won't stay here for long. There is no point in cleaning up the palace to live in. Wu Qian, the third largest shareholder of the Steel Gear Chamber of Commerce. When the businessman sent by Jiang Chen found her, she made a special request to the businessman. I can sell my shares, but I want to meet your leader. After getting Jiang Chen's permission, the NAC escorted her to Kingshan Town. However, as soon as they met, Wu Qian put forward her own proposition, hoping to become the spokesperson for NAC's interests in the Federation, and attached a fragrant additional condition, voluntarily becoming his mistress. Wu Qian was very keenly aware that NAC's acquisition of the Steel Gear Chamber of Commerce was not for the purpose of destroying the largest chamber of commerce in the Federation, but for the greater purpose of bringing the entire Federation under its rule. In this way, the value of controlling the Steel Gear Chamber of Commerce is much higher than destroying it. As for industries far away from Wanghei City, it is not convenient for NAC to manage them personally, and it is bound to select a spokesperson, like it is doing now in the Empire. So Wu Qian took the initiative to come to the door. Jiang Chen was a little surprised by Wu Qian's proposal. He did intend to keep the Steel Gear Chamber of Commerce, and also wanted to select a representative to help him manage the federal industry, but he had not yet considered the candidate. Jiang Chen will be the president, and the person in charge of this Chamber of Commerce must be someone who is both smart and easy to control. And Wu Qian is just a good candidate. Although Jiang Chen felt that her additional conditions were unnecessary, he accepted her service without any scruples, based on the principle of not eating the meat at his mouth. So there was the fragrant and erotic drama just now. Wu Qian had already put on her clothes and restored her dignified and majestic appearance as a strong woman, as if nothing had happened just now, and smiled. Then, I'll leave the matter as we agreed before to you. When she left the room, she politely closed the door. It took only 3 days for NAC to complete the acquisition of Steel Gear, the largest chamber of commerce in the Federation, with a total cost of 500,000 credit points and a 52% stake. At the same time, NAC applied for a compulsory acquisition of Liu Hong, who became the second largest shareholder, at a double premium in accordance with the Federal Securities Exchange Law. And according to the valuation of the Steel Gear Chamber of Commerce at that time, the 37% of the shares in Liu Hong's hands were only worth 200,000 credit points. Double premium, that is, 200,000. When Jiang Chen paid the money to the Federal Stock Exchange, Liu Hong had been kicked out of his own Chamber of Commerce. It was too late to change the law at this time. The Steel Gear Chamber of Commerce, which was valued at 10 million subcrystals, became Jiang Chen's industry overnight. As a result, the only plantation in the Federation was also under the control of NAC. However, the nightmare of the Federation had just begun. NAC, which monopolized the production of Hongcheng nutrition mixture, immediately announced a price increase, raising the price of nutrition mixture to 2 subcrystals, citing the depreciation of subcrystals. The price of just needed goods soared by 4 times, and the prices of other goods in the Federation followed suit. Although the subcrystals in the pockets of the people of the Federation did not change, everyone's wealth shrunk by half. Faced with the strength of credit points, the subcrystals circulating in the Federation were ruthlessly suppressed. Because the survivors of Hongcheng had already exchanged their currency for credits, The price increase did not have a big impact on them. The only ones affected were the hunters in Kingshan Town who hunted for subcrystals, but this loss was completely negligible for NAC. The first knife that NAC stabbed was stabbed hard into the chest of the Federation. The people were dissatisfied, so they naturally took their anger out on the president. Waves of protests followed one after another, and the city of United City was turbulent. At the same time, Jiang Chen, who served as the ambassador of NAC, announced his resignation and returned to the federal parliament. He stood in front of the public and told the public everything from being plotted against by the president to being rescued by NAC. No matter what era it is, political assassination is an absolute scandal. When the recording of the president's chief of staff buying his head from NAC was exposed, public opinion was predictably on the side of sympathy. Strike while the iron is hot. Jiang Chen immediately read out his campaign manifesto. Conspiracy, depression, bankruptcy. Look at what our president has done. This cannot go on. Before he destroys our homeland beyond redemption, we must pull this villain who is blinded by power down from the presidency. I will run for the next president. Brothers and sisters, I need your support. The whole audience cheered enthusiastically, and people whistled and welcomed him like a savior. On the other hand, the Steel Gear Chamber of Commerce, which had fallen from the throne of the first enterprise in the Federation, has completed its reorganization. With the support of NAC, this aging behemoth has regained its vitality. Wu Qian, the former third shareholder, was elected as the new president of the Chamber of Commerce. This dignified and cold female president, with her outstanding management ability and negotiation means, won the supply order of nutritional mixture with the NAC military government, and signed a supply contract of subcrystal with 7 factories in the 6th block, successfully turning the company from loss to profit. Under the money offensive of NAC, the media gave her a very high evaluation, packaging her as the most fruitful businessman in the history of the Federation. However, what the public of the Federation did not know was how the goddess they admired, when no one was around, let herself go on Jiang Chen, allowing him to do whatever he wanted and enjoying her in a gentle way. What happened next was predictable. Scandals, economic weakness, and the dissatisfaction of the Federation people with the president had reached a peak. Wu Qian used her influence to speak out through the media, attacking the Federation president and accusing him of being incompetent in solving problems such as employment rate and maintaining market order. On behalf of the Steel Gear Chamber of Commerce, she mediated in the parliament, impeached the president, and passed a resolution for early elections. Without the support of Liu Hong, Jia Ming could only watch all this happen. Without the support of capital, he had no power to resist. The parliament controlled the army, and the parliament was controlled by businessmen. Under the sugar-coated bullets of NAC, the congressmen defected one after another. NAC promised to implement a high degree of autonomy in Hezhong City, just like it ruled Kingshan Town. Since their own interests would not be harmed, those businessmen naturally did not bother to confront NAC head-on. Otherwise, the Steel Gear Chamber of Commerce would be a lesson for them. The early election was held as scheduled. There was almost no suspense, and the people welcomed their savior to the presidency. The first thing Jiang Chen did after taking office was to disarm and start defense cooperation with NAC. At the same time, the price of the nutritional mixture controlled by NAC fell, showing the people of the Federation the ability of the new president. Just like that, without firing a single shot, the NAC flag was planted in the presidential palace of the Federation. Chapter 659, Northern Shadow. In early September, Jiang Chen's return was postponed for a month because of the dumping incident of the Federation. With the end of the federal election, all the disturbances returned to calm. Under the leadership of Jiang Chen, the Federation and NAC re-signed an alliance agreement with a closer degree of cooperation, which marked that the entire Hangzhou was under the control of NAC. Jiang Chen personally went to Hezhong City to pay homage to the legendary commercial center of Jiangao province. The West was the right in ancient times. To be honest, after witnessing the true appearance of Hezhong City, he was still quite disappointed. This city, known for its freedom and prosperity, is indeed more prosperous than Kingshan Town, but it is still inferior to the 6th block of Wanghai City. However, after investigating the local industries, he still found many interesting places. The molecular filter screening technology of Hezhang City is much more advanced than that of Wanghai City, so it is no wonder that their nutritional price cost is much cheaper than other places. There are also genetically modified species of camu trees. Not only the quality of the resin is not inferior to that of Shengxiang town, but the yield per plant is more than 20% of that. There are also AI for service robots, improved graphene production technology, etc. As the Federation was brought under the control of NAC, these strictly confidential technologies also flowed into NAC along the trade routes. From this perspective alone, the price paid for the annexation of the Federation was not lost. Accompanying Jiang Chen on the business inspection was Wukan from the Steel Gear Chamber of Commerce. As the people of the Federation saw, Wukan, with her excellent diplomatic skills, resolved the conflict between the Federation merchants and NAC, and moved towards cooperation. The fact that the leaders of both sides can walk side by side has successfully proved this point. Of course, the relationship between the two is far from as simple as ordinary people see. During the days of inspection in Hezhang City, Jiang Chen walked out of her private residence every morning with a refreshed spirit. And it was during these days that Wukan came to the Chamber of Commerce every day with dark circles under her eyes and was distracted frequently during work and meetings, looking like she was overworked. However, none of the employees in the Chamber of Commerce noticed that the female boss was abnormal. Instead, they mistakenly thought that she was working day and night for the company, which led to lack of sleep. I wonder how those who admired her would collapse if they knew that she was being evilly trained by a man every night. Jiang Chen occasionally thought so evilly, but every time he mentioned this to her, Wukan desperately begged him not to do it, otherwise her image would be ruined, and she would never be able to see anyone again. Of course, Jiang Chen would not really do this. After all, he also needed Wukan as a spokesperson to maintain the stable operation of the Steel Gear Chamber of Commerce for him. After all, he spent hundreds of thousands of credit points to buy this company. It would be a pity to ruin it like this. But this did not prevent him from talking about it. To be honest, looking at the messy expression on her face and the way she begged for mercy, the S side of Jiang Chen's heart was completely developed. Of course, this may also be related to the fact that Wukan herself is actually a masochist. Let's put the ghost beast thing aside for now. On the last day of the inspection, Jiang Chen found Jiang in the presidential palace in Hezhang City. Seeing him again at this moment, there was no trace of decadence on him. He was wearing a clean suit, his hair was combed into a decent style, and there was a chief of staff beside him. Former President Jia Ming fled Hezhang City in disgrace just after the election, and left Hangcheng far away. He knew very well that once he lost power, Jiang, who was plotted against by him, would definitely not let him go. But his former chief of staff Zhu Chengwei was not so lucky. Because he was 2 steps late, he was immediately found out of the improper transaction with Liu Hong, the former president of the Steel Gear Chamber of Commerce, and was imprisoned by the prosecutor of the court for trial. The president of the court had already made a deal with Jiang, and it was impossible not to sentence him to 10 or 20 years. Having tasted the taste of power, Jiang was naturally loyal to Jiang Chen, because he knew very well that everything he enjoyed now was because of this man. If that person wanted him to lose everything, it would only take a word. Jia Ming, who fled in panic, and Zhu Chengwei, who was imprisoned, are lessons for us. At present, we are discussing the proposal to join the NAC economic zone. We have explained to the public that this is not surrendering to the NAC, nor is it being ruled by the NAC, but just a means to promote cooperation between the two sides. NAC businessmen will be more convenient to go to the Federation to invest, and we will no longer have to pay for national defense. The saved military expenditure can be used to do more meaningful things. Anyone object? Jiang Chen asked casually. Of course, but very few. Jiang rolled his eyes, crossed his fingers on the table, and said in an affirmative tone, "We will convince them." "Don't be so nervous." Jiang Chen smiled and took a sip of tea, leaning on the sofa. "I said I would let you become president, and now it has come true. I also said that, as long as you are obedient, you can always sit in this position. Of course, I believe you, I'm just not used to it yet." President Xi let out a long breath, and his tense shoulders relaxed a little. Get used to it as soon as possible. I will. Hearing this, Jiang Chen nodded, paused for a moment, and then asked, have you found out anything about who sent the letter? Jiang Chen was still curious about who leaked the password to the Federation. Since it wasn't Dr. Sun, who on Earth could be connected to Shelter 72, the survivor of the disaster mentioned by Sun Jiao, the mastermind behind the attack, or someone else. We already have some clues. We got some information out of Zhu Chengli, the former president's chief of staff, using some special means. Jiang Chen chuckled. Okay, I don't want to ask you about the details of the interrogation. Let's get to the point. Jiang Chen waved his hand impatiently. Seeing the impatient expression on Jiang Chen's face, Jiang Chen immediately answered. People from the Northern Union District. The Union District, have they reached out here? Jiang Chen frowned slightly and muttered to himself. Seeing that Jiang Chen was lost in thought, Jiang Chen didn't dare to disturb him, so he waited in silence for him to speak again. Where are those people? People from the Northern Union District, Jiang Chen said in a deep voice. Jiang Chen shook his head regretfully. I sent people to track down their whereabouts, but the clues were cut off 10 days ago. 10 days ago, they checked out of the Deathclaw Daddy Hotel in Hanover City, and no one has seen them since. Deathclaw Daddy. Jiang Chen's eyebrows jumped. What a bad name. Isn't the Deathclaw a matriarchal tribe? Of course, now is not the time to interrupt. 10 days ago, probably the second day after you became president. That's right. Jiang Chen nodded. Then can we assume that they took away the former president, Mr. Jiang? Jiang Chen said in a deep voice. My chief of staff and I think so too, but we can't find any evidence of a connection between them. Jiang Chen smiled bitterly. Evidence is only a reference factor. I'm not a judge. Sometimes I believe in intuition more. Just like the media can't find evidence of a connection between us, but the continuity between us objectively exists. Jiang Chen's finger tapped the back of his neck. Looking at Jiang Chen's actions, Jiang Chen swallowed his saliva. In the same position, he had an honor chip installed on the back of his neck. His identity had become a Knight of Nak, but it was not made public. When the Federation officially merged into the Nak family, Jiang Chen would consider issuing him a medal. Seeing Jiang Chen didn't speak, Jiang Chen pondered for a moment, then opened his mouth and gave instructions. Compared to Wanghai City, you are closer to the United District. I have only one piece of advice for this. Keep an eye on their movements at all times. Do you understand what I mean? You mean, the people in the Northern United District will be bad for us? Jiang Chen's face was a little ugly. Although he had never been there, he could feel the so-called United District's strength just by listening to the word of mouth of the passing caravans. Compared to these coastal and riverside areas, because they have been devastated by war, are more like wild lands. This is also the reason why the people in the United District claim to be orthodox. That's right. Jiang Chen said concisely. But they are more than 1,300 kilometers away from us, and it's a problem how they can get here. Jiang Chen smiled bitterly. It's only 1,300 kilometers, which is the distance between Wanghai City and Hangzhou. A long time ago, they broadcasted a declaration of war to us. It's just that more than 10 years have passed, and the legendary invaders have never come, but we have never forgotten their declaration. I hope they have forgotten. Jiang Chen smiled bitterly. I never imagine that the enemy has forgotten us. Jiang Chen stood up, paused, looked at Jiang Chen seriously, and said, if they finally fulfill their declaration of war and meet our people, it will be destined to be a war between civilizations. And the war between civilizations is far more tragic than the war between civilization and barbarism. I understand. Jiang Chen nodded with difficulty, looked at Jiang Chen who stood up, and then asked, are you ready to leave? Yes, I will return to Wanghai City tomorrow. I'll leave the Federation's affairs to you. Taking a deep breath, Jiang Chen said solemnly, leave it to me. Chapter 660 Triumphant Return. Finally, I'm going home. Standing on the steel deck of the Order, Jiang Chen looked at the rising sun from the edge of the wasteland, and he was quite excited. This trip lasted 2.5 months. The expedition, which was originally planned to return in a month at most, was delayed until September due to various troublesome problems. Of course, the expedition also yielded very gratifying results. According to the evaluation of analysts at the 6th Block Bank, the contribution of this expedition to the economic growth of the entire NAC is at least more than 5 million credit points. But at this moment, he didn't want to care about the gains and losses, he just wanted to quietly watch such a beautiful scenery. The weather is good today. Sun Jiao walked behind her and gently lifted her hair that was blown by the wind behind her ears. There is no radioactive dust, only pure blue and white. This is the original color of the sky. The rolling white clouds are like newly picked cotton, and the rolls are like waves, hugging each other like mountains. The order sailing here is just like a small boat against the blue sky. Below the steel airship was a ruin of broken houses, broken highway bridges, tall buildings covered with green branches, and a few flames. How much territory do we have? Jiang Chen suddenly asked, standing on the edge of the airship and looking down. From the 6th block to the Hangcheng Federation, the area under control is about 110,000 square kilometers. Sun Jiao said softly, because she often helped her sister deal with government affairs. Sun Jiao had heard a little about these data. NAC checkpoints can be seen everywhere in Suzhou and Hangzhou province, and some areas outside Suzhou and Hangzhou province have also established NAC outposts to provide supplies for passing caravans and shelter for survivors in the management area. On the contrary, Jiang Chen, the hands-off boss, didn't even know how vast the territory he had conquered was. Is it only this small? Jiang Chen smacked his lips. It has been almost 2 years, let alone the entire Pan-Asian region. Even the Huaxia region only occupies 1% of the territory. Hearing that greedy speech, Sun Jiao rolled her eyes at him and smiled. It's pretty good, isn't it? Even among the 110,000 square kilometers of land, less than 10,000 square kilometers are developed, and most of them are inhabited by alien species and zombies. Construction is much more difficult than invasion. That's true. Jiang Chen sighed. Population is always the chain that restricts the development and growth of NAC. Even if a larger territory is conquered, it will be useless without enough people to develop it. But if the power of the two worlds cannot be integrated, he really doesn't have much chance of winning. When facing the invasion of the Harmonious Camp, 100 years means a lifetime in the whole world to ordinary people. However, for the entire civilization, 100 years is just a fleeting moment. Taking out the thumb-sized glass bottle, Jiang Chen pinched it between his fingertips and studied it. The orange-red serum exuded a strange brilliance in the sun. This biological code, that was enough to attract all the powerful people. To peek at was like poison. Walking behind Jiang Chen, Sun Jiao whispered in his ear. Don't be too anxious. What are you anxious about? Of course it's about your hometown. Hearing this, Jiang Chen was stunned for a moment. Then he smiled and raised his hand to rub Sun Jiao's head. You are just like a worm in my stomach. Don't touch a girl's head casually. Jiao said with a smile, and gently covered Jiang Chen's big hand, but did not move away the warmth. Sorry. By the way, you are no longer a child. Jiang Chen laughed and said. I deduct 10 points for what I said just now. Jiao stretched out her hand and pinched his waist in a scolding manner, then turned and walked into the airship. Jiang Chen grinned and watched her back as she left, then turned his eyes to the ground. The Taipu River winding down from Dianshan Lake. On the other side is a giant round egg. The translucent graphene net reflects the colorful rainbow in the midday sun. Groups of engineering vehicles were scattered on the wasteland, working with thousands of workers to build this century-long project. There was a Garden of Eden. The steel airship flew over the Garden of Eden and arrived at Songjiang district of Wanghai City. Under the guidance of the navigation radar, it descended and approached the airship port in the 6th block. Soldiers and civilians in the camp cast respectful eyes and warm cheers at these steel behemoths returning from the expedition. The reason for choosing to dock at the airship port in the 6th block was mainly to show the strong military force of NAC to the people of NAC and the vagrants passing by. Whether the military strength is strong and whether the security environment is stable are often the main criteria for those wandering survivors to choose a settlement. Amid the cheers of the civilians, Jiang Chen, wearing power armor, led more than 1,000 expeditionary soldiers wearing mechanical exoskeletons, walked along the main road of the 6th block, and walked towards the square in front of the Inner Circle Parliament building. The people lining the streets to welcome the guests held flowers in their hands and scatter the beautiful petals. The dark polyethylene armor was bathed in petals and applause. All the soldiers stood up straight with pride on their faces. Jiang Chen deliberately made the team move slowly. These guys have been away from home for more than 2 months, fighting for Nak in a foreign land. The glory they have now is what they deserve as a reward for their hard work. Many enthusiastic single girls not only presented bouquets of flowers, but also hugged these warriors. It is human nature to worship heroes. A cute little girl stopped in front of Jiang Chen, and while hugging the steel armor, she suddenly stood on tiptoe and kissed him in the spotlight. Jiang Chen was not sure if this was her first kiss, because the little girl immediately lowered her head and fled into the crowd like a shy deer, facing the cheers of the crowd around him. Jiang Chen hesitated for only half a second, then smiled heartily, raised the flowers in his hand, and waved to his people. Heroes and beauties are eternal topics. After a brief pause due to the commotion, the team continued to move forward. Half a step behind Jiang Chen, Loser whispered in his ear. From her expression, she should be a newcomer who just left the shelter. If the marshal is interested, I can find her name for you. Because he was not sure how Jiang Chen felt about the girl, Loser was very careful not to use the slightly derogatory term blue skin. No need. Recalling the innocence that flashed in those eyes, Jiang Chen smiled and shook his head and inserted the dewy flower into the nylon buckle of the steel armor. Loser looked at Jiang Chen's back with a strange expression. The sun really rose from the west, and the marshal actually became a vegetarian. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 661 Return Home. The square in front of the Parliament building. Jiang Chen stood on the podium in front of the building, personally pinned medals on every soldier who had made great contributions to the rank of knight, and awarded all meritorious soldiers according to their merits. The morale of the audience was high, and everyone's face was filled with pride. For these little people, being awarded medals by the leader in person was a supreme honor. For those soldiers who had shed their blood on the banks of the Gan River and could not stand here to receive the rewards, the logistics department sent condolences to their relatives' homes to distribute medals, bonuses and pensions to them. War is bound to be accompanied by death. Although material compensation is not enough to soothe the pain in the hearts of the relatives of the deceased, it can at least make their second half of life better. After the triumphal ceremony, Jiang Chen followed Chunan to the executive officer's office. The first time he opened the door of the office, he caught a glimpse of the pile of papers on the table that was as high as a head. What are these? Military expenditure bills, just sent over. Don't worry about them, they just look like a lot. The auction of the land certificates of Jinxie Lake Farm has already made us back the ticket price, but the workload of signing each note is still quite large. Chunan swept the snowflake-like pieces of paper aside, took out a document from the desk, and handed it to Jiang Chen. Picking up the document, that was a finger thick, Jiang Chen flipped through it casually. What is this? Legal document. Hearing Jiang Chen's question, Chunan smiled slightly proudly. I referred to some of the legal books left over from the Pan-Asian Cooperation, and after consulting the opinions of former lawyers and economics experts, I made significant revisions to the original bill, including the establishment of a stock exchange, separating the issuance and trading of securities, futures, and land certificates from the banking system, and more standardized market supervision regulations. Please take a look. Looking at Chunan, Jiang Chen nodded approvingly and closed the document in his hand. Thank you for your hard work. No, this is my duty. Chunan smiled. Has anything good happened recently? Jiang Chen asked casually. Chunan was slightly stunned, and a rare embarrassed smile appeared on his face. He touched his nose and asked, how did you see it? It's written on your face. Don't you want to share it with me? Jiang Chen smiled. It's not a big deal. It's mainly about family. Chunan put his fist under his nose and coughed. He spoke quickly. I'm going to be a father soon. I'm going to be a father soon. On the way back to the fishbone base from the 6th block on the helicopter, Jiang Chen kept thinking about this sentence in his mind. To be honest, when Chunan said this, he was really scared. He always thought that this guy was not much older than him. However, since Chunan married Zhao Xiaoxia a year ago, his wife is now pregnant. His identity has also changed from a poor pilot in Liuding town to a prospective father. Jiang Chen saw the traces of the passing of time on Chunan. Is it time to have a child? Jiang Chen muttered to himself, but while thinking about it, his hand took out the serum from the storage space. Taking a deep breath, he threw the bottle back into the storage space and shook his head vigorously. It would be better to think about this problem later. He was not ready to take on the responsibility of a father. The IS-51 arrived at the base quickly and stopped steadily on the apron of the fishbone base. After jumping off the plane, Jiang Chen saw Cheng Weiguo, who came to pick him up. On the way back to the villa, Jiang Chen talked to him about the recent situation of the base and unexpectedly heard a lot of good things from him. For example, last month, a new shelter was opened in the northwest of Jia City. Cheng Weiguo had sent soldiers from the 1st Corps to take them to the 6th block before the predators arrived and explained to them the situation on the surface 20 years later. It is said that those blueskins who didn't understand the situation also made a lot of jokes. For example, a person who lived in the original site of the 6th block in front of the station saw that his house was razed and angrily went to the door to ask for an explanation, but was thrown out of the house directly. After inspection, there are no observers in the shelter, which means that this shelter is a real shelter, the kind that is for the purpose of preserving the population, without any special purpose. This kind of shelter is usually based on hibernation chambers, so for these survivors, the transition from peacetime to the end of the world is just a blink of an eye. It feels like wearing a suit and carrying a suitcase in the morning, taking a suspended train to arrive at the shelter, queuing up to check the number, and entering the iron gate, and then lying in the hibernation chamber to sleep for a while. When you wake up, the outside world has changed. If you leave them alone, some of them may die or be enslaved. Others will abandon the reserve of civilized people and become wanderers that can be seen everywhere in the wasteland. Of course, because of the existence of NAC, they naturally don't have to suffer these pains. Accommodation, compulsory education, and finally release back to society. NAC needs their knowledge and abilities, especially financial experts and scientists. These two types of talents are very popular in the 6th district. In addition, people who are proficient in computer technology can also find good jobs in the military zone. After saying goodbye to Cheng Weiguo, Jiang Chen stood at the door of the villa. He opened the door, but before he could stand still, a familiar figure rushed into his arms and fiercely blocked his lips. After a long time, their lips parted, and Sun Jiao stared at his eyes with a red face. Although there were thousands of words in her heart, after the reunion, only a few words came out. "Bad guy, why didn't you come back earlier?" Jiang Chen laughed out loud. "Laugh? What are you laughing at?" Sun Jiao glared at him fiercely. "No, nothing. By the way, where's Xiaorao?" After getting off the airship, Sun Xiaorao took a helicopter back to the base. She was not a soldier, so there was no need for her to participate in the triumphal ceremony, and she didn't seem to be interested in it. She's still in the office. She told me that she asked me to come back first, after you returned to the base in the afternoon. Sun Jiao said a little embarrassedly. Her sister had just put down her luggage after returning from outside and ran to the office to handle government affairs for her, which made her, as a sister, very embarrassed. But when she thought that Xiaorao had been alone with Jiang Chen for more than 2 months, the shame in Sun Jiao's heart suddenly disappeared. After staying on Jiang Chen for a while, Sun Jiao loosened her arms around his neck and left the remaining longing for him to the night. 6 hours later, Yao, who was standing next to her, pouted and looked at the two of them eagerly. Her fingers had been playing with the edge of her skirt for a long time. Seeing that Sun Jiao finally let go of Jiang Chen, the little girl immediately loosened her entangled fingers, put her hands behind her back, and closed her eyes nervously. The little mouth opened and closed slightly. It was as if she was waiting for something. Seeing Yao's cute behavior, Jiang Chen couldn't help but laugh, and reached out to rub her head lovingly. "Why do you want to close your eyes?" Don't you want to see me? No, no. Yao opened her eyes wide immediately. After meeting Jiang Chen's gaze, she quickly looked away with a red face and continued in a soft voice, I'm just a little bit looking forward to it. Ah, of course. If not, then no. Initially surprised, then happy, and then happy, Yao gently closed her big eyes that could speak, enjoying the feelings coming from her lips. After a long time, their lips parted. Jiang Chen let go of Yao, looking at her rosy face and watery eyes, and her appearance of waiting for you to pick her. His heart suddenly jumped. He inexplicably felt that his Lalita control soul was awakening. At this moment, Yao's blush had already climbed from her fair cheeks to the collar under her neck. Hey, Yao, go cook first. Today, let's make red bean porridge. Before she could recover from the afterglow of happiness, Yao smiled foolishly and staggered towards the kitchen. She looked like she might fall. Sun Jiao, who was watching from the side, pursed her lips. Pervert. Haven't I done anything yet? At this time, Jiang Chen noticed that Linling's eyes kept drifting towards this side, so he then cast his gaze towards her and teased with a smile. Do you want it too? Linling's face suddenly turned red, and she jumped up like a squirrel whose tail was stepped on, and shouted at Jiang Chen. Who would want it? It's really a perverted statement, and there is no logic. Humph. I want. Ting Ting raised her hand and said. You shut up. Don't make trouble. With red light flashing in her eyes, Linling tried to suppress Ting Ting's undisguised desire, fled back to her room in embarrassment, slammed the door, and left the two of them staring at each other in bewilderment. Chapter 662 Artificial Intelligence, Jane. It's already September. The tale of summer has just passed, and the temperature in the end of the world can't wait to drop. Normally, winter will come at the end of October, and snow will fall in mid-November. Winter in the end of the world comes a month earlier than in the present world, and it will leave a month later than in the present world. Linling has been very busy these days. In order to complete the external project of the Garden of Eden before the snow falls, enter the internal construction phase earlier, and make sure that this winter will not be wasted. She now runs to the construction site early and returns late every day. Originally the most idle person in the villa, he has become the busiest among all people. During this period, Jiang Chen basically stayed in the villa, carefully reviewing the legal documents modified by Chunan. Even if it was scanned into an electronic version, the 10 meters text volume is still a headache, and staring at the screen for a long time is also a torture for the eye muscles. Jiang Chen should return to the present world in October at the latest, and he must finish all the work he is responsible for before leaving, and take advantage of this time to spend more time with them. Sometimes he really wanted to split himself in two, one half stayed here, and the other half returned to the real world. The feeling of not having enough time was becoming more and more obvious. Jiang Chen put the tablet in his hand on the table, let out a long breath, and pinched his sore brows. It was too torturous to let undergraduates majoring in engineering look at these things. Thinking of this, Jiang Chen couldn't help but complain about Chunan in his heart. I don't know how that helicopter pilot is so good at these things. At this time, the door behind him opened gently, and Yao, holding a cup of coffee, walked to Jiang Chen's side lightly, and put the hot coffee on the table. Seeing his hard work, Yao pursed her lips distressedly, and whispered in Jiang Chen's ear, Big brother, are you tired to read so many documents? Of course I'm a little tired, but it's okay. Jiang Chen leaned back in his chair, looked up at Yao's concerned face, and said with a hearty smile, well, it would be nice if Yao could help. Jiang Chen smiled dotingly at the pouting little girl. Yao has helped me a lot, all along. Yao shyly smiled and scratched her cheeks shyly, then put her two little hands on Jiang Chen's shoulders. You've been working for most of the day, and big brother must be tired. So, Yao will help you massage your shoulders. Yes, please. Feeling the soft little hands kneading the shoulders, there is always a feeling of being healed by the whole body and mind. Jiang Chen simply closed his eyes and leaned back in the chair to enjoy it. Looking at Jiang Chen's restrained appearance, Yao curled the corners of her mouth happily. But seeing the thick stack of documents, the little girl couldn't help but pout again. If only she could help. Suddenly, Yao's mind flashed. Just a moment ago, she thought of a brilliant idea. Even though I can only program, I can still help my big brother. One morning, Jiang Chen sat at his desk and read the document as usual. But before he opened the document, Yao, who was wearing a pink nightgown, rubbed her eyes and pushed open the door, staggering into the room. Her sleepy look made it hard to disturb her. Because of the anemia caused by the inhibitors injected during hibernation, Yao was not very good at this time in the morning. But today she got up early, unusually, and got out of bed at 8 o'clock. HAA. Here Yao handed over the electronic watch in her little hand while yawning. What is this? Jiang Chen took the gadget from Yao's hand and looked at it carefully. Judging from the light and tough texture, it should be made of graphene. The screen, which is about 1 finger wide, looks short and compact. On the side of the watch, you can touch a button the size of a grain of rice. When you click it, you can unfold a holographic screen with adjustable size. The appearance is somewhat similar to Microsoft's smart bracelet, but the content is very different. Jiang Chen took off the app and put it on his hand. It is very light, and the weight is almost unnoticeable. After turning on the screen, Jiang Chen was even more surprised to find that this is not a watch at all. It is simply a lightweight, holographic app, a wrist-mounted computer with all its functions integrated. Something even more surprising happened. When the holographic screen unfolded, a bust of a woman was projected next to the main page. She had a ponytail and a sharp face that looked very cold. Her emotionless eyes looked somewhat similar to Han Junhe. Of course, it was only in temperament. Looking at the surprised expression on Jiang Chen's face, Yao smiled with satisfaction and slowly introduced her to Jiang Chen. Her name is Cocoon, and it is an intermediate artificial intelligence developed by Yao. Didn't Big Brother ask me to develop a safe and thinking artificial intelligence last time? Hey, Yao has already developed it. After a pause, Yao put her hands behind her back and said shyly, because it's too hard for Big Brother to read so many files alone. So I added some auxiliary functions to it, based on the original program. I hope it can help you, Yao. At the same time, the woman in the holographic interface bowed politely to Jiang Chen. Artificial Intelligence Cocoon, at your service. I downloaded the appearance of Cocoon from the library database. If Big Brother is not satisfied, you can customize it. Yao added. Haha, how can I not be satisfied with something designed by Yao? But putting the appearance aside, can you introduce her functions to me? Jiang Chen touched his chin and looked at the artificial intelligence program with interest. Intermediate AI is not as safe as primary AI, but from a functional perspective, the scope of work for intermediate AI is orders of magnitude wider than that for primary AI. For example, primary AI can only respond logically to human behavior and can calculate, but cannot think further. Intermediate AI is different. It can not only solve math problems, but also solve deeper application problems. According to Yao, the Cocoon not only has the function of self-compilation, but can even learn the knowledge it comes into contact with, and understand it to a certain extent. The reading, analysis, processing and input of data are far beyond the human brain. Similar assistant-type intermediate artificial intelligence has also been used in large companies before the war, and is often referred to as illegal intermediate artificial intelligence. Its duties are often to help manage the company's servers, and help the chairman better manage the company's operations. In this regard, the Cocoon designed by Yao borrowed a lot, and the security issues that Jiang Chen is concerned about are not to be worried about at all. Not to mention that the probability of losing control is so low that it can be ignored. The hard disk and memory space required by this Cocoon are terrifyingly large, so it can only exist in a special container. If it is placed in the present world, there are very few places for her to parasitize, so there is no need to worry about the possible impact of losing control. And even if it loses control, according to Yao's settings in the program, the Cocoon will completely obey Jiang Chen's orders, and program restrictions have been made on its evolution of independent consciousness. So its safety can be completely assured. I have implanted knowledge of economics and law into Jiang's database. Her current knowledge level is probably equivalent to that of a PhD in related majors. With Jiang as an assistant, it will be much easier for Big Brother to review documents, Yao said with a smile. After listening to Yao's introduction, Jiang Chen looked at the watch on his wrist and said with emotion, "It's just like a plug-in." Hehe, Yao smiled happily. "Although I don't know what a plug-in is, it would be great if I could help Big Brother. Well, Yao has helped me a lot this time." Jiang Chen stretched out his hand and rubbed Yao's little head happily. Not to mention reviewing these documents, this artificial intelligence program can be brought to the present world and installed in the server of future group. Sun Jiao has been urging him to find a secretary quickly, and he himself has been thinking about this matter, but he has not found a suitable candidate. Now, which secretary can compare with this artificial intelligence major? This efficiency is definitely not something that the human brain can look down upon. After seeing Yao off, Jiang Chen immediately returned to his desk, connected the tablet to his watch, and instructed the newly appointed secretary to read the legal rest documents and use professional knowledge of economics and law to evaluate the effectiveness of each item. The document search is complete, and the analysis results are as follows. This bill is used for trial use in medium-sized, administratively oriented market economies. There are 13 regulations to be improved, and there are 2 laws that were proven to have potential risks before 2171. The reference improvement plan is as follows. Comprehensive evaluation, B+. From a beginner's perspective, it is already very good to get a B+ evaluation. Jiang Chen can be said to be very satisfied with Chunan's ability. However, what satisfied him the most, and even surprised him, was the artificial intelligence designed by Yao. It was simply too amazing. Jiang. I always feel that this name is a bit inappropriate for calling a program. Jiang Chen slapped his head and came up with a name that he thought was pretty good. How about this? I'll call you Jiang from now on. The 2 words are homophonic, and the meaning is simple. And if the word Jiang is translated into English, it seems to be a female name. Name change completed, Mr. Marshall. Also, don't call me Marshall in the future, just call me Chairman. Yes, sir. Looking at Jiang on the holographic screen, Jiang Chen's mouth curled up with a satisfied arc. With Jiang's help, I believe it won't take long for him to solve this troublesome problem. Return to the present world in the next chapter. Chapter 663 Intelligent Office Software. The sun was warm, and green shadows of trees swayed outside the window. Jiang Chen lay in bed for a while to adjust, rubbed his eyes, and sat up. He opened the window, and the fresh wind blew in his face. Jiang Chen took a deep breath of the refreshing air, and looked at the sea level. In the calm distance, the silhouettes of cruise ships and sailboats were faintly visible, and the trawling fishing boats were nowhere to be found. The last time I left was in the middle of summer, and now it is already autumn. However, for a tropical island close to the equator, summer or autumn does not seem to have much significance. The seasons will never change. What changes with each passing day is the clothes of people on the street, the increasing number of private cars, and the high-rise buildings. In the past year and a half of welcoming the future technology, the Panu Islands have also ushered in earth-shaking changes. So much so that after only 3 months away, he actually had a bit of an illusion that things have changed. Fortunately, this villa has not changed. Looking at the drones trimming branches and leaves in the yard, Jiang Chen thought so. Bang, bang, there was a gentle knock at the bedroom door. Needless to say, it must be Aisha standing outside the room. Jiang Chen couldn't help but smile, closed the window, drew the curtains, picked up the remote control on the bedside table, turned on the air conditioner, and then walked towards the door. He hadn't seen her for 3 months, and he missed her. As for what embarrassing things he was going to do next, it was no longer necessary to tell outsiders. With the help of Jane, Jiang Chen quickly completed the work at hand, and after spending a leisurely September with Sun Jiao and the others, he returned to the world in early October. Before leaving, Jiang Chen went to shelter number 27 and handed over the information on the hidden gene code transplantation technology and the bottle of serum to Wang Fangping. Under his leadership, the Life Science Research Institute of the shelter will start research on the DNA code called tenacity. If the secret of achieving immortality without gene code transplantation can be found from it, then Jiang Chen will not have to worry about whether to change his skills. Although he had few opportunities to fight in person, he was still very satisfied with his ability to go berserk. On the first day, after returning to the present world, Jiang Chen and Aisha did not go out and spent the whole day in the warmth of reunion. The next morning, Jiang Chen went to the future building for the first time in a long time. The first thing he did was to install the Jane subroutine on the server of the future group. Originally, this server was a civilian-grade quantum computer, which was just right for Jane's terminal. From then on, Jiang Chen only needed to use the watch on his left hand to browse the operating status of each department of the company and issue instructions to each department through Jane anywhere that could be connected to the internet. As a result, Future Technology can be said to have become the world's first company to apply artificial intelligence to company management. After finishing this matter, Jiang Chen went to Zha Xiao's office to report his safety to her. Because she was used to him always disappearing suddenly, Zha Xiao's reaction was relatively calm when they met this time. But it is absolutely impossible to say that she was not worried at all. It was precisely because of this that she scolded Jiang Chen a lot after seeing him. "You are a billionaire after all. Can you stop disappearing? If you are caught by those financial reporters, it might make a big news." "I'm fine, right?" Jiang Chen smirked and brushed off the topic. He took out a USB flash drive from his pocket and threw it on Zha Xiao's desk. "What is this?" Zha Xiao picked up the USB flash drive on the desk and asked in confusion. "Jiang Office is a simple and intelligent office software. I asked someone to tailor it for our company. From today on, I require every employee to install a copy on their computer. In the future, work emails, contracts, financial statements, performance appraisals and other documents must be uploaded through this software and backed up in the company server to implement comprehensive digital management," Jiang Chen said. Hearing this, Zha Xiao sighed and held her forehead. It's too much to ask to change the office software suddenly. Using an unfamiliar software has a significant impact on work efficiency, and the office software currently used by our group is very practical, so there is no need to change it at all. Believe me, you will like this software after using it. Jiang Chen smiled and said confidently. This software is tailor-made for future group by Jiang. After reading the company's server data, combining the characteristics of existing office and management tools, based on the company's operating conditions, with the help of the operating power of quantum computers, the entire set of office software with a size of only 500 megabytes took only half an hour from the beginning of concept to the completion of writing. The concept took about 25 minutes, and the actual coding took only 5 minutes. Looking at Jiang Chen doubtfully, Zha Xiao picked up the USB flash drive, inserted it into her office notebook, and clicked a few times with the mouse. The reading bar ended quickly, and the installation file was successfully copied to the notebook. After completing the installation, Zha Xiao clicked on the legendary office software. There are instructions for use in the folder. Jiang Chen reminded beside her. "Yeah, I see." Zha Xiao casually browsed the description text and operated the office software. A minute passed, and a hint of interest appeared in her eyes. 5 minutes passed, and the look of interest gradually turned into surprise. 10 minutes. "Not ready yet? We are just testing the function." Jiang Chen couldn't help but remind Zha Xiao as she kept clicking the mouse and typing on the keyboard. "Sweat. It's not a fun game, it's just an office software. Is it necessary to be so obsessed with it?" Zha Xiao's cheeks flushed slightly, and she threw away the mouse. "Excuse me, I just tried it for a while to test the practicality of this, simple office. How is the effect?" Jiang Chen asked with a smile. "Very good. Whether it is user experience, running speed or security, it is impeccable. Especially the employee community system, that is more sophisticated than social software. It not only has the function of virtual meetings, but also simplifies file uploading, approval and backup to an unimaginable degree." Zha Xiao nodded. "As you said, this simple office is tailor-made for us. So, does my CEO have any opinions on promoting this software in the company?" Jiang Chen leaned against the desk and said in a teasing tone. "I can't find any reason to object." Zha Xiao's mouth curved up, and a rare smile like spring breeze appeared on her serious face. I believe that, as long as we are familiar with this software, the office efficiency of our group employees can be improved by at least 10%. I will hold a group meeting later and discuss this matter with several presidents of subsidiaries. If it is confirmed that there is no problem, we will immediately promote this simple office throughout the company. Xia Xiao's work style has always been so vigorous and cautious. Jiang Chen nodded with satisfaction and then said with a smile, "Then I won't bother you." After saying that, he turned and walked towards the door. But at this moment, Xia Xiao suddenly called him. "By the way, President Zhang came to the company to look for you a few days ago. It seems that he wants to discuss something important with you." "President Zhang? Did he say what it was specifically?" Jiang Chen asked in a daze. "I don't know." Xia Xiao shook her head. "I just heard that it seems to be related to water." "Water?" Jiang Chen looked at her in confusion. Chapter 664. Water resources are too scarce. Compared to the deserted 1 year ago, the presidential palace on Koro Island is much more lively. Because the outline of the white paint and marble columns resembles the White House and the magnificent subtropical garden, it is also regarded as one of the tourist attractions by tourists visiting here. On the lawn in front of the courtyard, Jiang Chen can see bodyguards in suits and sunglasses, as well as tourists taking pictures. When Jiang Chen arrived, the president's chief of staff was already waiting at the door. He was the only one in the whole country who did not need an appointment to see the president. After explaining the purpose of his visit, the chief of staff respectfully led him into the hall and took him to the office. There were 2 people sitting on the sofa in the office. One of them was naturally Zhang Yaping, and the white man Jiang Chen looked a little unfamiliar. Seeing Jiang Chen come in, the 2 stood up, and in accordance with the principle of respect first, Zhang Yaping introduced Jiang Chen first. "This is Jiang Chen, the chairman of the Future Group, a star enterprise in our country. You should have heard of it. Nice to meet you, Mr. Jiang Chen." Wearing a black suit and shaved cleanly, Smith politely extended his hand to Jiang Chen. "This is Lud Smith, the representative of the American Matrix Desalination Company." Then, Zhang Yaping introduced Mr. Smith to Jiang Chen with a smile. "Hello, Mr. Smith. I'm also very happy to meet you." After shaking hands with him, Jiang Chen smiled and nodded, then took a seat and cast an inquiring look at President Zhang Yaping. Sensing the inquiry in his eyes, Zhang Yaping immediately smiled and said, "It's like this. We are currently planning to build a desalination plant in New Zealand, so we invited the American Matrix Desalination Company to do an engineering assessment for us on Koro Island." "Desalination plant? Is there not enough fresh water on the island?" Jiang Chen asked unexpectedly. "Not only is it not enough, New Zealand currently relies on imports from Australia for fresh water," Smith teased, taking out a stack of documents from his briefcase. "This document is the distribution of groundwater on the island, and this one is the site selection of the water treatment plant." Jiang Chen had no idea how much water and electricity bills he had to pay for his villa every month. He was too lazy to look at the bills of thousands and hundreds of dollars, not to mention that he was always running to the end of the world. It was not until Zhang Yaping mentioned this that he realized the problem. Before the 20th century, Koro Island had abundant underground fresh water resources. However, with global warming and rising sea levels, seawater washed away the roads and houses on the island, causing seawater backflow and seriously polluting the groundwater. The freshwater resources outside the island no longer exist, and the island can only rely on the remaining groundwater in the center of the island and the small freshwater lake on the neighboring Gallon Island for drinking water. There is a lot of rainfall in the tropics, and the freshwater resources of Singapore were originally sufficient. However, with the increase in immigrants and the surge in tourism, the water supply system that could only provide drinking water for 50,000 people now has to provide water for 150,000 people. In order to avoid paying for the expensive water price, many tourists even travel with backpacks full of mineral water. However, the locals are suffering. They can't even buy fresh water on Amazon, including workers who have not yet obtained citizenship. The current population of Singapore has grown to 50,000. It is generally believed that in a well-equipped large city, each person needs to consume 400 kilograms of fresh water per day, which means that Singapore's normal living water needs 20,000 tons of water per day. According to statistics, about 1% - 2% of the normal urban water supply is for drinking, so at least 200 to 400 tons of fresh water are needed every day to maintain the drinking water demand of the residents of New Zealand. You can save money on taking a shower, but you can't save on drinking water. Fortunately, the New Zealand government has money and has signed a water supply contract with an Australian water company for 12,000 tons of fresh water per day to ease the pressure on domestic water supply. However, the high freight costs doomed the import of fresh water to be an impossible long-term solution. The New Zealand Parliament voted to prepare a tender to build seawater desalination equipment on Koro Island to curb the high water prices. Before the public dissatisfaction turned into a protest, Jiang Chen flipped through the documents casually, and Zhang Yaping continued to speak beside him. We plan to let you do the seawater desalination plant. If the future group is not interested, we can also find another way. Why not let the water plant do it? Jiang Chen asked casually. In Jiang Chen's impression, the Australian City Westward Company, referred to as CWW Group, is responsible for the freshwater supply and water pipeline maintenance services in the Panu Islands. Jiang Chen really had no interest in the freshwater supply market. Even if the price of water was as high as $5 per ton, and the desalination plant monopolized the freshwater business of the entire country, the net profit of this desalination plant would be at most $500,000 per month. The annual income was only $6 million, which was not even a small profit compared with the income of Future Group in the fields of internet, food, robotics, automobile industry, and medical care. CWW Group believes that our market is completely insufficient to support a desalination plant, and it ignored our bidding documents. Other small companies do not have the ability to accept the bid. If it really doesn't work, the parliament is discussing this desalination project as a social welfare project, which will be operated by the government like public schools. Zhang Yaping smiled bitterly, continuing to subsidize the freshwater sector. Even if the government of New Zealand has money, it can't afford it. What do you think? Jiang Chen looked at Smith. Smith smiled slightly, took the document from Jiang Chen, and turned to the page with color pictures. For the situation in the Panu Islands, our company recommends the integrated desalination device in the document that uses the LT-MED principle. The entire desalination production line can process up to 35,000 tons per day, with a processing cost of $1.60 per ton, which can perfectly solve the water supply crisis that Singapore is currently facing. What's the price? Including the construction of the treatment plant, our offer is $150 million. Too expensive. Zhang Yaping shook his head. Even if the equipment maintenance costs are not taken into account, this freshwater treatment plant will take more than 30 years to recover the investment cost under ideal circumstances. Although he is not short of money, there is no reason for Jiang Chen to take on a deal that is doomed to lose money. Smith smiled helplessly. Desalination is a long-term investment. Believe me, a one-time investment is definitely more cost-effective than long-term imports of fresh water. Can't it be cheaper? This is the market price. Smith said in an uncompromising tone. The desalination equipment designed by our Matrix Desalination Company for the Maldives, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia and other countries is much more expensive than what we sell to you. To be honest, after so many days of negotiating this matter, Smith was a little impatient. The negotiations had been going on for so long, but there was no progress at all. The Singapore government wanted to desalinate seawater, but didn't want to pay for it themselves. The largest tap water supplier, CWW Group, directly rejected him, making him feel that he was simply wasting his time. The company urged him to solve the problem here as soon as possible and take his team to Saudi Arabia. There was a cooperation project worth $1 billion with Saudi Arabia Desalination Corporation waiting for him. At this time, Jiang Chen suddenly spoke. Wait, you mean the market price of desalination equipment is very expensive? What else? Do you think desalination is just setting up a stove to boil water? I recommend you to try it. After leaving this impolite remark, Smith stood up, left a business card on the table, and looked at Zhang Yaping. I'm sorry, Mr. President, we failed to reach a cooperation agreement, and my team and I have wasted a week on the island. Regarding the cost of geological assessment and water treatment plant site selection, we can only settle separately. We will send the bill to the presidential palace in 7 days. If you and your think tank are sure that you have discussed it, please contact us then. I have another flight in 2 hours. See you. After that, Smith picked up his briefcase and left without looking back. Zhang Yaping wanted to keep him, but was stopped by Jiang Chen. Let him go. I don't want to cooperate with them, Jiang Chen said with a smile. Well, if it doesn't work, the money still needs to be paid. We can't keep importing fresh water from abroad. Wait, what did you say? Are you going to get involved in the fresh water business? Zhang Yaping suddenly came to his senses and looked at Jiang Chen in surprise. If the future group intends to take over this project, he has nothing to worry about. I didn't plan to do that originally, Jiang Chen said bluntly, and then laughed again. But from what he said, the market size of seawater desalination seems to be quite large. It was a mistake. Jiang Chen almost forgot that there are more than one water-scarce country in the world with his eyes fixed on New Zealand. Those oil-rich countries like Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates are all people who value water more than gold. Let's not talk about the distant ones. Let's talk about the near ones. Why did China carry out the huge South to North water diversion project? It's because there is a shortage of water in the north. If he could build a dozen freshwater treatment plants along the Bohai Sea coast, would the South-North water diversion project still be necessary? Seawater desalination is not just a small profit, it is a huge profit. Is seawater desalination technology a problem in the 22nd century? What about reverse osmosis, low temperature multi-effect method, and electrodialysis? They are so weak. I really made a mistake, and I almost missed the money at my feet. Thinking of this, Jiang Chen couldn't sit still at this moment, and he slapped his thigh and stood up. Humph, sorry Matrix Desalination Company, right? From now on, you have a competitor. Seeing that Jiang Chen was about to leave, Zhang Yaping asked anxiously, are you going? He didn't stop Smith from leaving just now, and now Jiang Chen was about to leave without saying a word, and he couldn't help but feel a little anxious. Someone has to solve this fresh water problem. Stopping in his tracks, Jiang Chen turned around and smiled at him. Let's go talk to CWW Group. I just suddenly remembered that future heavy industry seems to be able to make desalination equipment. Hearing Jiang Chen seems to be, Zhang Yaping almost vomited blood and complained about Jiang Chen in his heart. Damn it, you should have told me earlier if you could do it. Chapter 665. Are you interested in cooperation? Not only is there a vast overseas market, but after Penglai City is built, the supply of fresh water will probably become a practical problem. Currently, 300,000 units have been sold. Even if the occupancy rate is only 50%, the population of Penglai City will be a terrifying number. After leaving the presidential palace, Jiang Chen got in the car and asked Aisha to take him to the entrance of CWW Group. After the car was on the road, he first called someone from CWW Group and then clicked on the holographic image on his left wristwatch. A faint blue light emerged and a three-dimensional bust appeared in the car. Aisha's eyes were wide open with surprise, but she didn't ask anything. She pressed the button to close the car window and continued to concentrate on the road ahead. Jane, start the four-dimensional messaging device and help me search the catalog of recycling technology completed in shelter number 27 and match the items related to seawater desalination. Yes, sir. The woman in the holographic image nodded slightly and a light blue data stream flashed on her solid outline. The four-dimensional transmitter was originally a chip mounted on the EP. It was initially used to communicate with Linling across dimensions, and later it was connected to the server of the Fishbone base, so that Jiang Chen could immediately learn about the situation and the apocalypse. Later, because Yao's DIY watch already had the functions of the EP, Jiang Chen implanted the chip into the watch. Search completed. A total of 7 items have been matched. Download to my watch. Yes, Mr. Chairman. Jane said in an emotionless tone. Watching the progress bar on the holographic screen finish, Jiang Chen reached out and poked the screen. Received. You can go play on the side first. Q. What does go play on the side mean? It means to come out when I need you. I always feel uncomfortable when someone is watching me while I'm playing on the computer. Although I know she is an AI, except for her expression, she is too close to humans in every aspect. Understood. Nodding, Jane's figure turned into a dark blue character and dissipated in the air. Leaning on the co-pilot seat, Jiang Chen called up the files downloaded to his watch. As early as after clearing the infection source in the city center, shelter number 27, with the help of the first corps of NAC, began to recover the technology under the ruins of Wanghai City. Regardless of whether these technologies have been digested or not, all the data has been logged into the database by more than 1,000 researchers for emergency use. Seawater desalination technology is also a relatively common technology in the overpopulated 22nd century. Although Wanghai City, located at the mouth of the Huangpu River, cannot experience the pain of water shortage, it does not prevent it from providing technical services to other water-scarce areas of pan-Asian cooperation. The researchers of the shelter have only completed the collection of these technologies and have not yet digested and sorted out the specific contents of the technical documents, but the conceptual graphics and effect parameters of these documents themselves are recorded very well, so it does not prevent Jiang Chen from checking the contents of these projects. The finger swiped across the interface, and the blue linear cube immediately outlined the shape of the seawater desalination device. Who is she? Aisha asked curiously. Artificial intelligence. Her name is Jane. Jiang Chen smiled. It's actually a program. I thought it was your assistant. Aisha whispered as she turned the steering wheel with both hands. The CWW Group's office in Singapore is located in the city center of Koro Island. Fortunately, the road conditions were not bad, and the two arrived at their destination in just 15 minutes. The car stopped steadily. Jiang Chen grabbed with his 5 fingers, put away the holographic screen, pushed open the door and walked out. In this tourist city full of rickshaws, the sudden appearance of such a flame-colored Lamborghini is quite eye-catching. Many tourists even took out their mobile phones excitedly to take pictures. Although Jiang Chen didn't know what they were so excited about. When he walked into the lobby of the CWW Group, a secretary-like person greeted him and took him to the direction of the elevator. On the way here, Jiang Chen had already called the manager of the CWW Group branch. Although he didn't want to continue to entangle with the Singaporean government on the issue of seawater desalination, considering Jiang Chen's identity, Jim nodded his temporary visit and postponed the scheduled meeting for an hour. Please take a seat, Mr. Jiang Chen. Alert poured a cup of coffee for Jiang Chen and sat opposite him. I'm surprised you'll visit our company. Future Group is interested in the freshwater business. To be precise, we are interested in seawater desalination. Jiang Chen took a sip of the coffee and put it down without touching it again. Damn, what kind of coffee is this? It tastes as bitter as Chinese medicine. Hearing Jiang Chen talking about seawater desalination, Elliot thought Jiang Chen was here to persuade him, so he sighed. There has always been such a joke in our company. Oh. Jiang Chen looked at him with interest. The revenue from our company's tap water supply business in Singapore so far is not as much as the revenue from real estate. Elliot sipped his coffee with relish and continued in a teasing tone. For example, this office building under my feet cost a total of $150,000 including the decoration, and now it can be sold for at least $2 million. Haha, your joke is quite funny. Jiang Chen laughed. Are you so pessimistic about Singapore's freshwater market? There are only 50,000 permanent residents now, but what about in a year or two? The key is not here. Alert shook his head, threw a sugar cube into the coffee cup, and stirred it gently. On the one hand, the Singapore government wants us to expand our business, and on the other hand, it wants to make drinking water a welfare. We do not have the power to raise prices for drinking water on our own. Although the freshwater resources in Koro Island are tight, to be honest, we are not optimistic about the market here. Then do you have any plans to sell your business here? Jiang Chen asked. Alert shook his head. We are not optimistic, but we do not intend to withdraw. Does that mean you intend to maintain the status quo? Jiang Chen understood their plan. Exactly. Alert nodded. Currently, the freshwater supply pipelines in Singapore are owned by the CWW Group. Other freshwater companies have only two choices if they want to enter the market, either cooperate with them or relay the pipelines themselves. Even if the government spends money to import fresh water, it still sells the fresh water to them at a low price according to the contract, and then supplies water to residents through them. This behavior of buying high and selling low can also be regarded as a disguised financial subsidy. Jiang Chen nodded and said nothing. Alert took a sip of coffee, looked at Jiang Chen, and asked in a surprised tone, "Is Future Group interested in the fresh water business?" "Yes." Jiang Chen nodded again, looked at him and continued, "Future Heavy Industry, a subsidiary of our group, has just made a breakthrough in seawater desalination technology. It happened that Zhang Yaping came to me to tell me about the shortage of fresh water resources in New Zealand, so I plan to build a seawater desalination plant on Koro Island, with an estimated daily processing capacity of more than 40,000 tons. 40,000 tons is just a conservative number. Any seawater desalination technology from the 22nd century has a minimum processing capacity far higher than this number. However, for New Zealand, this number is enough. 40,000 tons, that's a big scale," Eric said slowly, "but have you considered the cost? With the industrial electricity price in New Zealand, our cost per ton of desalinated water can be controlled below $0.5. 0.5 US dollars? That's not bad." Eric's hand holding the coffee cup suddenly froze. With a bang, the cup fell to the ground, and he didn't care about the coffee juice on his body. He supported the table and stared at Jiang Chen with wide eyes. "This is impossible. I have never heard of a technology that can reduce costs to this extent. Not even Matrix can do it. But we are people from the future," Jiang Chen said calmly, but he laughed in his heart. "This is because the electricity price is high in the present world. If it were put in the 22nd century, when nuclear fusion technology is mature, the cost of desalinated water would not be much more expensive than tap water." Eric was about to refute, but his words froze in his throat. He suddenly remembered that the Future Group seemed to always be creating miracles and subverting people's inherent concepts. From virtual reality to household robots, an absurd idea came to his mind. Maybe they can really do it. How about it? Are you interested in cooperation? Looking at Eric, who was silent, Jiang Chen asked with a smile. Chapter 666, Saudi Arabia's old friend. $1. Such cheap desalinated water is even cheaper than the groundwater pumped out by some water pumps on Koro Island. Eric has never heard of such a powerful desalination technology. The cost of desalination depends largely on the local electricity price. New Zealand itself has no oil production and uses a large amount of new energy power generation equipment. Although this is environmentally friendly enough, the electricity price has always been not low. According to the evaluation of CWW Group, if a desalination plant is built on Koro Island, even if the most advanced production equipment is used, the cost per ton of water will be more than $2. So when Jiang Chen said that the cost was only $0.5, Eric was so shocked. My goodness, even if there is a nuclear power plant on Koro Island, the cost of desalinated water cannot be so low. The two sides quickly reached a cooperation agreement and even saved the step of bargaining. Future Heavy Industry is responsible for building the desalination plant, and CWW Group is responsible for connecting the pipeline to connect the fresh water produced by Future Group to the tap water supply system of New Zealand. Eric immediately ordered his secretary to print out the contract and signed a desalinated water supply contract with Jiang Chen for a daily supply of 20,000 tons. He looked so nervous that he seemed to be afraid that Jiang Chen would go back on his word. After the contract was signed, Eric politely escorted him to the door in person. "Don't you want to take some of the black coffee I brought back from Western Australia?" "No thanks." Jiang Chen quickly waved his hand to refuse. He had just experienced how bad that stuff tasted. The 20,000 ton supply contract, excluding all expenses including labor costs, and a profit of $0.50 per ton, could bring Future Group a maximum of $300,000 in revenue per month. This amount of income was really pitiful. Even if Future Group spent money to acquire CWW Group's water supply system and monopolized all channels from production to sales, it could only double this number at most. So from the beginning, Jiang Chen set his sights on the overseas market. It just so happened that there was such a person in his phone number who would definitely be interested in such cheap fresh water. Hello, Mr. NAF. It's me, Jiang Chen. We at Future Heavy Industry have come up with a new gadget. No, I'm not talking about a new robot, but a desalination device. As soon as Jiang Chen closed the door of the car, he took out his cell phone and called NAF, who was far away in Saudi Arabia. Desalination device? We do have plans to build a new desalination plant on the Red Sea coast, but we have found the American Matrix company to help us design it. They are experts in this area and are also our old partners. Hearing that Jiang Chen seemed to be trying to promote desalination equipment, NAF frowned slightly. Although he and Jiang Chen had a good personal relationship, he would not make concessions on the drinking water project that was related to the welfare of the Saudi people. Because of his personal relationship, the American Matrix company promised them that it would build a new hybrid desalination plant for them in the Mecca area on the Red Sea coast, which would use ultra-high concentrated photovoltaic power generation technology to generate electricity and produce 1.097 million cubic meters of water per day to replace the high energy consuming and inefficient oil-based desalination plant. Although the price of thermal power is very cheap in oil-rich Saudi Arabia, from the perspective of environmental protection and sustainable utilization, the practice of exchanging oil for water still has more disadvantages than advantages. The production cost of this seawater desalination plant using mixed energy is as low as $1.50 per ton, which is quite good in NAF's opinion. What is the price of water in your country? Jiang Chen asked. According to the data in the first half of the year, in the Mecca area, the average price of water is 7 rials per ton. NAF said after thinking for a moment 7 rials is about $1.9. After a slight estimate in his mind, Jiang Chen's mouth curled up a smile. So, are you interested in fresh water at $1 per ton? Hearing Jiang Chen's words, NAF was stunned. So much so that his beautiful Princess Amira brought the peeled grapes to his mouth, and he forgot to open his mouth. $1 per ton? Cost price? The cost will of course be a little lower than this $1 is the price we supply water to you. Jiang Chen said with a smile. NAF was shocked. He stood up immediately and walked to the window of the palace holding his phone. My friend, you are always so surprising. Ahem. I want to ask, is everything you said true? Supplying us water at a price of $1 per ton? This is incredible. Please forgive me for being a little excited. NAF was not only excited, but also a little incoherent. Saudi Arabia has always provided a certain degree of financial subsidies in terms of gasoline, electricity, and water conservancy in the country. Take tap water as an example. In order to ensure that the 4 million people in the capital Riyadh can drink clean and relatively cheap water, the Saudi royal family has to spend hundreds of millions of dollars every year to subsidize the water price. Although Saudi Arabia is rich, who doesn't want to save some money? The $1 water supply price proposed by Jiang Chen will not only greatly alleviate the of course it's truer than gold. Jiang Chen smiled brightly. Compared with the welfare-oriented water supply contract signed with CWW Group, the contract with oil bosses like Saudi Arabia is the highlight. The water supply price of $1, even if calculated based on the water supply of 1 million tons, can bring in $15 million a month. And the desalination equipment he has on hand has a production capacity of more than 1 million tons per day. As the cooperation with Saudi Arabia strengthens, Saudi Arabia, which is used to cheap water, will definitely expand its water supply contract, and other water-scarce countries around it, seeing the cheap fresh water enjoyed by Saudi Arabia, will definitely come to seek cooperation. Jiang Chen seemed to have seen those Arab tycoons waving banknotes and waving at him. By the way, what is the quality of the desalinated water you produce? We will never give our citizens something mixed with sand. NAF asked another question he was concerned about. Drinking desalinated water for a long time is not good for health. If the quality of the desalinated water produced by Future Group is not up to standard, the Saudi royal family will never tolerate it. But his worries are completely unnecessary. The 22nd century Pan-Asia cooperation's demand for food safety is far better than any country on this timeline. Don't worry about this. We are expected to build the first desalination plant on Koro Island in a month. You can send someone to inspect the quality of our desalinated water. One thing I can assure you is that the desalinated water we produce is definitely cleaner and much healthier than the water currently circulating on the market. Hearing Jiang Chen say this, Naef breathed a sigh of relief. He was still very confident about the promise of future group. I will send someone to inspect your place. After a pause, Naef hesitated slightly and then said, Jiang Chen, we are friends, right? Of course. Jiang Chen didn't know why he suddenly asked this question. Then can you do me a small favor? Naef whispered. Of course, no problem. As long as I can help. Jiang Chen said happily. It shouldn't be a difficult task for you. Naef coughed and lowered his voice. I will try to obstruct the negotiation with Matrix Company for the desalination project and finally change it to an open tender to major companies around the world. I hope you won't take the initiative to bid to us at that time. No bid? Jiang Chen was a little confused about what he meant. Yes, Naef nodded. I will take the initiative to invite you. Hearing him say this, Jiang Chen immediately understood what he meant. Naef is the crown prince, and there are more than one prince in Saudi Arabia. But the old king likes to change the crown prince, so there are many people eyeing his position as the crown prince. Although he was responsible for leading the cooperation with Matrix Company this time, the person who initiated the project and found Matrix Company was another prince named Rashid. Although he didn't say it, the old king seemed to be very satisfied with Prince Rashid's performance. This also made Naef feel uneasy. Haha, of course, no problem, Mr. Naef. You underestimate the friendship between us. Jiang Chen laughed. Thank you so much. You Chinese are really good brothers who value friendship. Naef said happily, and he used poor Chinese for the last sentence. Although there were many things worth complaining about in his grammar, Jiang Chen just smiled and exchanged a few polite words with him. For Jiang Chen, this was just a trivial favor. If Naef fails to become the king, the future group will not suffer any loss. But if he really becomes the king in the future, I believe he will not forget the help the future group has given him. Chapter 667 We Don't Sell. Jian provided Jiang Chen with a total of 7 desalination solutions. After combining the actual situation of New China, Jiang Chen finally chose a design called a hybrid energy desalination plant and handed over the low-tech parts to the factory in the new Malaysia special zone for production, while the high-tech equipment was handed over to the high-tech industrial park on Anger Island. Although it is nominally a listed industrial park, there is only one factory of future heavy industry, a service robot assembly plant. Every month, 400,000 Xiaolin will come off the production line, be shipped to the port, and be sold all over the world. Now, a new production line has been added to this assembly plant. With the industrial grade 3D printing equipment that Jiang Chen brought from the end of the world last time, the core components of the desalination device are produced. All the processed parts were transported to the sea area east of Koro Island and assembled by amphibious engineering robots. Unlike the construction plan of Penglai City, the assembly desalination project was not open to the public. Due to its small scale, people did not notice this huge thing until the construction was completed. The assembled device floated up as a whole and was shipped by ship to a location 100 meters away from the coast of Koro Island to anchor. One noon, the sun was shining brightly and the blue sky was cloudless. The palm leaves of the coconut trees swayed with colorful shadows. Jim Ryan, a reporter from the Washington Post, was lying leisurely on the beach on the east coast of Koro Island, enjoying this rare vacation. This small island is always full of countless news, and people in Washington are unexpectedly full of interest in this island. Just writing 2 reports about Penglai City and putting them on the headlines will increase the sales of newspapers. It is better to say that many people buy newspapers just to see if the future group has come up with anything new. Just after writing the last report on Penglai City, Jim sent the document back to the newspaper headquarters and received an email for promotion. The manager of the newspaper plans to transfer him back to the headquarters to serve as the editor-in-chief of the newspaper. After receiving the news, he opened 5 bottles of champagne in excitement. He had 5 days of vacation before returning to Washington to take office, and he planned to use this time to rest. The tropical temperature made people drowsy, but just as he was looking at the rising heat waves on the sea and preparing to take a nap, a cry from not far away dispelled all his sleepiness. "Jim, get up quickly, there is something on the sea." At this moment, his girlfriend in a bikini ran over, put the shaved ice she just bought on the beach table, and shook his shoulders to wake him up. "What is it? Wait, are you sure you didn't see a mirage?" Although he said it reluctantly, Jim still climbed up from the lounge chair and let his excited girlfriend pull him, jogging to the sand dunes not far from the beach. His news intuition told him that there might really be something incredible on the sea, and the facts confirmed his guess. When they were only halfway there, a dark shadow had already appeared on the sea. The metal floating island, about the size of a basketball court, was supported by 4 ships and stopped not far from the beach. Jim gradually stopped, holding his girlfriend's hand and staring at the sea in a daze. He heard exclamations in various languages. "Dad, what is that? It's incredible. My phone, honey, where is my phone? I want to take a picture and post it on YouTube. Oh, shit, it's in my hand. I bet this must be the work of the future group again. Don't worry, baby, maybe we can buy tickets to go up and sunbathe in 2 days. Remember to wear your new swimsuit." Suddenly, the crowd burst into exclamations again, waking up Jim and his girlfriend, who were stunned. The outer shell of the metal floating island began to expand in all directions. The airbag in the middle began to expand, and the iron pipe under the water began to float up. "Jim, what is that?" Jenny asked in disbelief, holding the reporter's boyfriend's hand. However, at this moment, her boyfriend, who usually doted on her the most, shook her hand away. "Cell phone. Damn it. The cell phone and camera are in the bag. Wait for me here, Jenny, I'll be back soon." Jim yelled and ran towards the luggage storage point under his girlfriend's incredulous gaze. However, Jim still failed to capture the unfolding scene of this huge monster. In full view of the public, this metal floating island the size of a basketball court unfolded into the size of a football field. The square design is very similar to the offshore oil drilling platform. The only difference is the unscientifically wide area and the hundreds of graphene pipes interlaced on the surface. Around this steel floating island, there are rows of cylindrical buoys connected by pipes. These cylinders extend vertically into the seabed and serve as the seawater collection unit of the entire seawater desalination equipment. The collected seawater is roughly filtered and sent to the distillation device in the middle through the graphene pipe for processing, and then the desalinated water is output through the outlet at the bottom of the platform. The interface on the left can be connected to the power unit for power transmission, and the entire equipment will only operate after power is turned on. The modular design allows the equipment to be powered by either thermal power or solar power. The most important thing is that this desalination device can be moved. If you are not satisfied with the current location, or a typhoon is about to pass, you only need to retract the graphene anchor cable fixed to the seabed, disassemble several main modules, and tow them to other places by ship to redeploy them. As long as you connect a water pipe from the land, this seawater desalination platform can continuously supply fresh water to residents on land. This seawater desalination platform is of course impossible to be deployed in a tourist attraction. The reason why it was chosen to be deployed here for the first time is mainly to give this new device a free advertisement. It's incredible. Standing on the top of the future building, Naef looked at the seawater desalination platform through a sightseeing telescope, and his mouth was almost grinning. Originally, he planned to send his secretary to come, but because of his importance to this project, he still flew to Koro Island in person. "We will see a lot of similar comments in the newspaper tomorrow," Jiang Chen, standing next to him, said with a smile. "So why don't we talk about something more interesting? How much do you plan to sell this platform for?" Naef asked without looking back, as if his eyes were glued to the telescope. "We won't sell it." Jiang Chen shook his head. Naef was stunned and finally moved his eyes away from the telescope. He turned back and looked at Jiang Chen in confusion. "Didn't we agree?" Jiang Chen smiled. "We will supply you with fresh water at a price of $1 per ton." Compared with a one-time deal, Jiang Chen prefers a long-term business. Moreover, if the future group controls the Saudi Arabian freshwater supply market, it will not only gain benefits on paper, No one can live without fresh water, especially people in the desert. When the future group uses cheaper desalinated water, it will gradually squeeze out other seawater desalination plants. At that time, the future group, which controls the seawater desalination platform, will be equivalent to controlling the lifeline of these water-deficient countries. By then, the entire Persian Gulf and the countries along the Red Sea will be inseparable from the fresh water of the future group. It is also at that time that they will follow the lead of the future group. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 668 2 Million Tons Order. After some bargaining, Naif finally accepted Jiang Chen's proposal reluctantly. The two returned to the building, and Jiang Chen took him to his office. At the same time, Sun Jiao also placed the prepared agreement on Jiang Chen's desk. No one wants drinking water to be controlled by others, but there is no way. The price offered by Future Group is too tempting. At present, the average cost of desalination in Saudi Arabia is $1.53 per ton, and this is because they are a major oil producing country and the cost of thermal power generation is very low. According to the agreement reached by the two, Future Group will cooperate with the beach desalination company controlled by the Saudi royal family. The desalination platform produced by Future Heavy Industry will be anchored near the Red Sea, and the tap water pipeline laid on the seabed will be laid by the Saudi side. Jiang Chen is responsible for turning on the tap, and Naif drags the pipe over to collect water, pumps the desalinated water into the reservoir, and pays Future Group at a price of $1 per square. Theoretically, as long as the seawater collection units around the platform and the seawater desalination modules on the platform are increased, the seawater desalination efficiency of a single platform can reach a terrifying figure of 4 million tons per day. However, the terrifying water resource throughput naturally means terrifying energy consumption. But it doesn't matter, the platform is next to the port of Saudi Arabia, the oil tyrant, and the cost of fuel is very cheap. Naif promised Jiang Chen that he would deliver relatively cheap natural gas and fuel to the offshore platform. According to the agreement reached by both parties, to supply 2 million tons of desalinated water per day, the price of each ton of fresh water can be compressed to an ultra-low price of $0.37. If this currency unit is converted into RMB, it is almost the cost of tap water treatment, which shows how low its cost is. By then, this offshore platform will bring a daily income of $1.2 million to the Future Group, which is more than $400 million a year. The Saudi royal family will save at least $600 million in budget for the domestic freshwater supply subsidy policy. At the same time, the project of the new energy seawater desalination base originally planned to be built on the coast of the Red Sea will be cancelled, which will also save it $1.5 billion in engineering investment. Naif had been holding this contract for 3 years. With the contract, Naif boarded the private plane happily and returned to Saudi Arabia eagerly. He was looking forward to the expression on his father's face when his younger brother was busy bringing in the American Matrix company, negotiating a purification equipment cost of $1.50, and preparing to pay for the project with $1.5 billion. He quietly got a water supply contract of $1 per ton from overseas. He knew very well how much his father valued the desalination project. Haha, Rashid, my dear brother, just be an Arab prince. It is better for this king to be a capable person. Regardless of how ecstatic Naif was on the plane, Jiang Chen had just returned to the Future Man building. The desalination platform on the east coast of Koro Island had completed the connection with the pipeline laid by CWW Group and started trial operation. When the cheap fresh water filled the reservoir of CWW Group immediately implemented the documents issued by the new government and lowered the water price. Based on the original price, Singapore's water price was directly cut in half. This news spread throughout Singapore through Koro Island TV, media newspapers and the internet. FutureMan Heavy Industries' first desalination platform was completed, and CWW Group announced a 50% reduction in water prices, and will continue to reduce prices by 17% next month on the basis of the reduced water price. FutureMan Group Chairman Jiang Chen announced that Singapore's water prices will return to rationality, and every Singaporean will be able to drink cheap fresh water. It is reported that the freshwater output from the desalination platform will meet drinking water standards. Oh my god. The tap water price has dropped. A few days ago, my family was considering wholesale some plastic barrels in the supermarket. If it continues to be so expensive, we can only purify rainwater ourselves. Thank god, the price has finally dropped. Did you see that desalination platform? It says FutureMan Heavy Industry on it. Praise FutureMan Group. Praise Jiang Chen. The whole country was caught up in the carnival of freshwater price reduction. According to statistics from the CWW Group, water consumption on the day of the price reduction increased by 35% compared to the day before, and gradually returned to rationality a week later. At the same time, the desalination technology launched by Future Heavy Industry has also attracted the attention of the world. It is not because of how cheap the fresh water it produces is, or how efficient it is, but because the cool way the offshore platform is deployed is so impressive. Someone filmed the scene and uploaded it to video sites such as YouTube. On the first day of uploading, the video received over 1 million hits. Netizens from all over the world flooded the comment area, and half of them asked the person who uploaded the video which science fiction film the clip was taken from. Many informed netizens kept clarifying, how can this be a science fiction film? Did you see the big words Future Heavy Industry on it? It doesn't matter, if you don't know it, call your little Lenovo. The Washington Post was the first to report on the incident, and then the New York Times, Los Angeles Daily News and other major media outlets reprinted it. In an interview with Columbia TV's evening talk show, well-known journalist Jim Ryan described the situation at the time in an exaggerated tone. It's incredible. Have you seen Transformers? Of course, I'm not talking about the Transformers I saw, but the video that went viral on the internet. You can never imagine the expression on my face at that time. Compared with the turmoil on the internet, after the first few days of carnival, public opinion in Singapore has returned to calm. Good news has come from Saudi Arabia. The Saudi king is very satisfied with the contract signed between NAF and Future Group, and welcomes high-tech enterprises such as Future Group. At present Future Heavy Industry has begun to produce parts for the second desalination platform. The produced parts will be shipped to Saudi Arabia by the ships of China Ocean Shipping Company and temporarily stored in the warehouse of Yanbu Port. It is expected that the production of all parts will be completed by the end of the month. At that time, the engineering ship of Future Group will sail across the Gulf of Aden and go to the Red Sea to complete the assembly of the desalination platform. Compared with the platform deployed east of Koro Island, the desalination platform manufactured by Future Heavy Industry for Saudi Arabia has a higher output. In order to supervise the production, Jiang Chen personally went to the high-tech park on Angkor Island and found Lin Zhengyang, the factory director of Future Heavy Industry who was responsible for the production. This project will serve as a model project for Future Heavy Industry in the field of seawater desalination. I ask you to keep a close eye on the quality of the project. Not even a screw can go wrong. Yes, boss, Lin Zhengyang shouted with a red neck. Patting his shoulder, Jiang Chen motioned him to return to his post. Just as Jiang Chen was about to walk around the factory and inspect the production of Xiaolin's production line, the phone in his pocket rang. He took it out and saw that it was Xiao calling. What's the matter? Jiang Chen answered the phone and asked. The Blue Seagull International Ocean Conservation Association has issued an announcement on its official website, claiming that our marine resource development activities in the Pacific have seriously damaged the local ecological balance, and sent a lawyer's letter to our group, hoping that we will stop damaging the marine ecological environment. Hearing Xiao's words, Jiang Chen was stunned. Damage the ecological environment? What the fu.ck? Chapter 669 A Painless Warning. Suez in Singapore? Jiang Chen thought he had misheard, so he asked again. If the case was filed in Singapore, he would have 100 ways to make the Blue Seagull International Marine Conservation Association lose the case, suing him on his own turf. Wouldn't that be uncomfortable? They are suing directly to the International Tribunal for the Law of the Sea. Of course, we can also refuse to respond, but this will affect our international reputation. And they wrote in the lawyer's letter that they reserve the right to organize protests. In short, being entangled by such a public welfare organization is a headache. Sun Jiao's voice was very helpless. I will go back to the group right away and talk about this later. Jiang Chen hung up the phone and walked quickly outside the factory. Unlike the International Court of Justice, the International Tribunal for the Law of the Sea can not only hear cases between countries, but also hear cases between countries and political entities or even individuals. However, this kind of borderless court often does not have a strong binding force and is often played by various countries. Future Group has sued many companies, but it is the first time to be sued by a non-profit organization. Jiang Chen used his mobile phone to log into the official website of the International Ocean Conservancy and saw the big poster hanging on the front page. Under the deep sea, there was a blade-like fan and a bloody dolphin, with a line of words at the bottom, "Please stop hurting our friends." However, what made Jiang Chen laugh and cry was that any project involving the development of marine resources, from the offshore mining unit to the construction of Penglai City, would be equipped with sonar to drive away fish. This condemnation without a single word of factual evidence is completely a groundless slander. As soon as he returned to the company, Jiang Chen immediately went to Sun Jiao's office, actively respond to the lawsuit, and sent our lawyers to sue them for false accusations in the US District Court of California, demanding that they compensate us for our economic losses. Also, find out who is behind them. I want to see who instructed them. Jiang Chen would never believe that the behavior of the Blue Seagull was spontaneous, for some inexplicable reason, to protect the ecological environment. The branch of Futureman Technology is in Los Angeles and has a harmonious relationship with the California State Court. As long as the public relations are done well, it should not be difficult to win the case. As for the investigation, Jiang Chen handed it over to the ghost agent overseas. But surprisingly, before this person was sent out, the mastermind behind the scenes took the initiative to stand in front of the stage. The call came from Boston, USA. "This is just a warning to withdraw from the Saudi Arabia project." A male voice came from the other end of the phone. "It's a harmless warning." Jiang Chen laughed, but his tone gradually became cold, and he asked playfully, "Are you from the American Matrix Company?" The person on the other end of the phone did not deny it, but did not express approval, just said in a leisurely tone, "If it is other businesses, you beat us through normal commercial competition and snatch business from us, we have nothing to say. But this project was carried out under the instruction of Washington, and we will definitely not stop there." From his tone and words, Jiang Chen heard arrogance, and the corners of his mouth could not help but curl up a little. Expecting Futureman Group to compromise? Dream on. Really? Then I look forward to your next hand. Whichever one you extend, I will chop off. Jiang Chen said without giving in. Arrogant. Throwing down this word, the other party simply hung up the phone. The two sides have broken up, and there is no need to negotiate anymore. Jiang Chen immediately ordered the ghost agent in the United States to track down where the call came from, but in the end it was only located in a public telephone booth in Boston. After receiving this news, Jiang Chen had to start with the American Matrix Company and investigate the identity of its shareholders. However, because the American Matrix is not listed, the equity information is not open to the public, and it took some effort to get these confidential information. In the end, Zilei hacked into the server of the Matrix Company and intercepted some information from an equity change agreement. In the end, all the clues locked on a name. The fifth largest consortium in the United States, the Boston Consortium. Speaking of the Boston Consortium, its origin is not small at all. As one of the top 10 consortiums in the United States, although it is not as good as Morgan and Rockefeller, it is definitely the oldest one. Its establishment can be traced back to the 19th century, when the Lowell, Lawrence, Adams, and Lodge families in the Boston area, together with the emerging Kennedy family, formed the Boston Consortium, which almost controlled the entire North American textile industry. Their shadow was behind the Civil War. Although its influence is not as great as before, its influence in the United States is still not to be underestimated. The world-famous Raytheon Company is one of its industries. These large consortiums that control the United States are more or less inextricably linked to the Ministry of Defense. Since the Boston Consortium holds the US matrix, everything makes sense. The White House hopes to strengthen its control over Saudi Arabia through a cooperative project on fresh water supply. After all, the US dollar is linked to oil. Even in today's low oil prices, the White House still attaches enough importance to expanding its influence in the Middle East. Now that the Future Group intends to intervene in the desalination project, the Boston Consortium, whose business has been ruined, can't sit still. As they said, the lawsuit from the Blue Dolphin International Marine Conservation Association is just a warning. The Boston Consortium will suppress the business of the Future Group in many fields until the Future Group can no longer bear the loss and give in to the freshwater project. That is not very profitable. However, Jiang Chen will never let them do as they wish. Sooner or later, the Future Group will touch the interests of these old-time consortiums. If they shrink their eggs when friction occurs, how can they do business in the future? Jiang Chen will never compromise and will respond to the provocation of the Boston Consortium with a tough attitude. Fortunately, none of the companies in the Future Group are listed companies, and the financial means that the Boston Consortium is good at are not very useful in dealing with the Future Group. However, they still found two entry points. One is to cut the knife from the internet, which is the most profitable of the Future Group, and the other is the interests of the ocean. On October 11th, the US Department of Justice suddenly launched an antitrust investigation into the US branch of Future Technology. At the same time, two American environmentalists boarded the offshore platform of Future Mining in the Pacific Ocean by speedboat, but were soon detained by the security guards of Starring Trade. The US Embassy in Singapore immediately responded to the incident and asked Starring Trade to release the people. The Boston Consortium threw a side hook and a straight punch at the beginning, taking the lead in this business competition and directly attacking the weakness of Future Group. If the US Department of Justice's antitrust investigation ultimately determines that Future Technology is suspected of monopoly in virtual reality projects, it will undoubtedly deal a heavy blow to Future Technology's development of the virtual reality market. Because this will provide a reference case for other countries to win. But will Jiang Chen let them succeed? The answer is obviously no. Chapter 670 Counterattack. This lawsuit is of great importance. Jiang Chen convened the CEO of FutureMan Technology North America and representatives of the legal team to hold a virtual meeting through the Phantom Helmet. At the beginning of the meeting, Jiang Chen asked, "What is the probability of winning?" 70%. The US Department of Justice's prosecution against us is untrue. Our Phantom Helmet is strictly a high-end VR device. Although it has a large share in the US market, it is far from enough to reach the level of monopoly. For example, Microsoft's HoloLens, Google Cardboard and other devices still have a certain market share in the low-end market. And the most important thing is that we have not used our own advantages in the market to hinder other companies from entering the market. The representative of the legal team replied in an affirmative tone. Monopoly prohibited by law refers to the behavior of deliberately creating barriers to entry in the industry, monopolizing key resources, excluding and eliminating competition. It is a procedural judgment, rather than a result judgment. Monopoly may lead to market leadership, but market leadership does not mean monopoly. What hinders other companies from entering the market is only the technological gap, not the obstruction of FutureMan Group using its own advantages. Therefore, there are many far-fetched aspects in the prosecution of the US Department of Justice. The possibility of FutureMan Group winning the case is very high. Nodding to the lawyer, Jiang Chen then looked at Kermit. "Kermit, you are the CEO of North America. I only have one thing to say about this matter. Prepare a good public opinion offensive. 70% of Americans have our FutureMan 1.0 installed on their mobile phones. It is not only a gold mine, but also our weapon. I ask you to create a public opinion that the US Department of Justice is suspected of bribery and is conducting an improper antitrust investigation on the Future Man Group out of local protectionism, hindering the development of science and technology. Although creating public opinion pressure is not enough to force it to submit, it can also make it pay a considerable price. The Department of Justice serves the White House, and if Ms. Hillary wants to be re-elected, she has to be cautious about this matter. It doesn't matter if there is no evidence. We can use the Navy and conspiracy theories. Jiang Chen added. Understood. Kermit nodded. After the meeting, Jiang Chen went to Crescent Island. On the island, he saw two young men who were detained for forcibly boarding the offshore mining platform. Due to pressure from the US Embassy, Starring Trade did not send the two men to prison for the time being, but took them to the military base. A man and a woman. The woman looked very young, like a college student. The man was a little older, about 30 years old, with glasses on his thin face and a little stubble on his chin. Crouching in the small dark room, looking at the rifles in the hands of the soldiers outside, the man was okay. He looked like a man who had seen a lot of storms and had been imprisoned by many governments. The woman looked like a rookie, squatting in the corner and shivering. Katie, calm down. They dare not do anything to us. We are American citizens after all. Just for the sake of face, Hillary has to get us out. Barney Baird comforted his partner. But they have guns. Katie said in horror. Don't worry, Miss Katie, we are not cannibals from New Guinea. Just like that gentleman said, we won't do anything to you. A voice suddenly came from the direction of the door, and the two people in the small dark room immediately looked up there. The soldiers standing in the corridor stood at attention and saluted, and stepped aside. Barney saw who was coming, and immediately narrowed his eyes. Jiang Chen. I didn't expect him to come here in person. We are the environmentalist defenders of Blue Seagull. You unscrupulous entrepreneurs, you have no right to interfere with our righteous actions. I advise you to release them quickly, otherwise, make a documentary about the treatment you received today and put it on YouTube to discredit us. Jiang Chen smiled playfully. Or do you plan to organize a large environmentalist parade in Washington or New York to accuse us of unfounded crimes? This is not an unfounded accusation at all. Your actions forced those poor dolphins to leave their homes because of your irresponsible behavior. Do you know what consequences this will bring to the ecological environment? Katie plucked up the courage and stared at Jiang Chen and accused him. Really? Whether we are guilty or not, you are not the police. And just 7 hours ago, you boarded the mining platform of Future Mining and interfered with our production work. We are discussing charging you with piracy. If convicted, you will face 10 to 15 years in prison. I'm curious, when you left the country, didn't the customs remind you to abide by local laws? Jiang Chen said with a smile. You can't do this. Barney's face showed a trace of panic. Jiang Chen didn't seem to be willing to compromise with the US Embassy, which was completely beyond his expectations. His companion, Miss Katie, was completely shocked. Although she called herself an environmentalist, she had never considered dedicating herself to the cause of environmental protection. When she heard that she would be imprisoned abroad for more than 10 years, she burst into tears. Of course we can do this. Jiang Chen said lightly. You have the right to hire a lawyer to defend yourself, but I guarantee that you will lose. Please, don't do this. I'm still studying at Bernard College. I will be expelled. Katie grabbed the bars of the iron window, looked at Jiang Chen pleadingly, and said with snot and tears. Jiang Chen didn't look at her, but looked at the pale Barney and smiled. But there is room for maneuver. What do you want me to do? Barney glanced at Katie who was crying, and said with difficulty. Cooperate with us, and restore our reputation loss. As he said that, Jiang Chen snapped his fingers, and the people behind him put 2 contracts on the table. Looking at the 2 contracts on the table, Barney swallowed and reached out to pick up one of them. Who is this? Barney Baird, an internationally renowned photographer, editor-in-chief of a humanities and social sciences magazine, and an important member of the Blue Seagull Environmental Protection Organization. I heard that you are good at photography. We will provide the equipment, and you can help me shoot a documentary called Lies. Jiang Chen said. This is impossible. Barney shouted excitedly. Jiang Chen looked at him expressionlessly and said in an uncompromising tone, "There are only two choices before you. Either stay in jail for life or sign this document." Looking at the document, Barney's face turned pale. "Barney, please. I heard my companions pleading with tears in my ears. I just want to get our innocence back," Jiang Chen said expressionlessly. After a long silence, Barney, who couldn't stand the pressure, finally picked up the pen tremblingly. When signing his name, he seemed to have used up all his strength and collapsed on the chair. As a senior executive of Blue Seagull, he still heard a little about the inside story of the smear campaign against Future Group. Although he didn't know who was behind the scenes, from the unscientific activity funds, he had already realized that the mastermind behind the scenes might be quite powerful. This is also the reason why he was unwilling to sign. For Mother Earth. Don't be kidding. He knew better than anyone that, since the construction of Future Group's Penglay City plan started, he had been paying close attention to its impact on the ecological balance of Haiti. As Jiang Chen said, the Future Group's sonar had driven the fish out of the construction radius. He had argued with the organization's president about this. However, as Jiang Chen said, he had no more choices. "If I sign, can you guarantee my safety?" "Of course, no problem, but you may not be able to return to the United States in a short time. Believe me, I'm doing this for your own good." After putting away the contract, Jiang Chen signaled the soldier to unlock the door, looked at him and smiled. "Our people will take you to a 5-star hotel in a while. Don't worry about the cost, I will pay for you. Remember, you have never been in a small dark room, not even for a minute. It's the end of the month. Those who still have votes can vote. Morningstar thanks you." Chapter 671 Hackers Take Action. At the same time that the US Department of Justice formally submitted an application to the court to sue the US branch of Futureman Technology, Futureman Group sent a team of lawyers to the International Tribunal for the Law of the Sea to actively respond to Blue Seagull's lawsuit. At the same time, Futureman Group hired a team of lawyers to file a lawsuit against Blue Seagull's headquarters in the United States, claiming that it had published false information on its official website, which had a significant impact on the international image of Futureman Group, and claimed $1.7 million in compensation from it, and ordered it to immediately stop slandering Futureman Group. With the support of the Boston Consortium, Blue Seagull certainly would not give up, and expressed the absurdity of Futureman Group's lawsuit against a public welfare organization, and declared on its official website that it would never compromise with capitalists. At the same time, it claimed to the public that Futureman Group had detained its members who were conducting peaceful protests, and demanded that Jiang Chen release them immediately. People from the US Embassy also contacted people from Starring Trade, but things turned out to be unexpected. When the US ambassador to New Zealand, Machi Bockus, found Ivan, the CEO of Starring Trade, he unexpectedly discovered that the facts were not as claimed by the members of the Blue Seagull organization. Barney and Tina were not treated unfairly, but were welcomed by Jiang Chen. Appearing in front of the media as a free man, Barney accepted an interview with reporters. The previous rumors about my inhuman treatment by the Future Group were untrue. After learning about the purpose of my and Tina's visit, Jiang Chen personally met us and highly praised our noble behavior of protecting the ocean. At this point, Barney's mouth twitched and he hesitated. But thinking that he had already stood on the opposite side of the Boston Consortium and a penalty for breach of contract that he could not afford, he took a deep breath and said to the media camera, "With his assistance, I completed the filming of the documentary, and the name of the documentary is called Lies." There was a slight commotion in the crowd below the stage. The reporters who had a premonition that there would be big news were alerted and all kinds of questions rushed to Barney like a barrage of bullets. Barney was indifferent to the questions of the reporters. As agreed with Jiang Chen, he accused the Blue Seagull charity organization of taking bribes and slandering the Future Group without any evidence under the instruction of the American Matrix with a deceived expression. He was involved in this dirty deal without knowing it. As soon as he said this, there was an uproar in the audience. "Mr. Barney, is everything you said true? Do you have evidence to prove your accusation? What are the specific details of the deal? Speak out boldly. Environmentalists all over the world will stand by you." Mr. Barney, what I want to ask is, when you said these words, were you threatened? Facing the media's tidal wave of questions, Barney raised his hand and stretched out 3 fingers. I swear on my character that what I said is absolutely true. No one threatened me. As you can see, I'm safe. As for the evidence, it is all in that documentary, which I have uploaded to YouTube. In this documentary called Lies, the first 30 minutes recorded the ecological landscape under the Penglay City offshore mining platform and desalination platform of Future Group, and the last 30 minutes revealed the transaction between the Blue Seagull organization and the American Matrix, and the spearhead was directly pointed at the Saudi freshwater purification project. The photography idea of the whole film went from suspicion to reflection, and then to exposure, and all of this was made public in front of the public. Under the publicity of Future Group, the documentary shot by Barney set off a huge wave on the internet. Brent Lancey, the president of Blue Seagull, resigned because he accepted a bribe of $2 million and could not withstand the pressure of public opinion. The American Matrix immediately came out to clarify, but in the face of public opinion that had already formed a storm, the so-called clarification was not painful at all. It can be predicted that once this statement comes out, it will definitely cause a heavy blow to the reputation of Blue Seagull. Once a public welfare organization loses its credibility, it will completely lose its vitality. Unless they are in a special country, they can be forced to donate. Blue Seagull and American Matrix are just pawns. Jiang Chen knows very well that the real opponent of Future Group is Boston Consortium. After dealing with these 2 minions, it's time to use real weapons. While the media denounced the American Matrix, Zilei, who was far away in Europe, successfully hacked into the server of Boston First National Bank with the help of the quantum computer of Coro Island. I have to praise them here. They are really good at network information security. However, in front of the combination of hackers and quantum computers, nothing is absolutely secret in this information age. The information of tens of millions of depositors was copied. At the instruction of Jiang Chen, Zilei posted all this information on a social networking site in Iceland as a mysterious person. As soon as this move came out, it directly set off a magnitude 6 earthquake in the American financial industry. The market value of Boston First National Bank plunged 8% that day, and it was only with the emergency firefighting of the Boston Consortium that the downward momentum was barely curbed. The disclosure of depositor information is a huge scandal for the bank. Americans whose privacy was violated jumped up like a cat whose tail was stepped on. Depositors swarmed to ATMs and desperately withdrew money from their accounts. Once a bank run occurs, even the richest banks cannot bear it. Jiang Chen originally wanted to play big and hack into the bank's server to reduce the deposits of each depositor to 0. Unfortunately, Zilei told him helplessly that such a thing was not something a hacker could do. Only God could do such a thing. The hacker attack directly killed the Boston Consortium. Even if it was the oldest consortium in the United States, it would inevitably suffer a serious blow to its core interests. Afterwards, according to the assessment of Wall Street analysts, the depositor information leak incident caused direct losses of up to $3.7 billion to the Boston Consortium, and indirect losses of up to $11.7 billion. A good brand needs 100 years to operate, but it may only take a few days to ruin this sign. This leak even alarmed the FBI. After discovering that the attack came from abroad, the CIA also intervened in the investigation. This did not scare Zilei. Although he had received several months of military training in Africa, he would definitely be beaten up if he met a professional agent. However, he was not very worried about whether the CIA would really find out about him. With the help of quantum computers, he wiped his ass very clean. All lights eventually pointed to an internet cafe in a village on the edge of the Sahara Desert in Morocco. He didn't have to worry about it at all in Munich. Although the Boston Consortium guessed that the leak might be related to Jiang Chen, after all, Future Technology is engaged in the internet. However, due to the lack of evidence, they could do nothing about it. While the Boston Consortium was busy putting out the fire at the bank, Future Technology released a piece of news on its official website. in order to cooperate with the US Department of Justice in collecting evidence for the antitrust investigation. Futureman Technology will suspend the provision of virtual reality services to 110 million users in the US from tomorrow. Futureman Technology has repeatedly stated that we actively cooperate with the investigation of the US Department of Justice, and at the same time, look forward to the early completion of the investigation by the US Department of Justice, so that Futureman Technology's branch in the United States can resume operations as soon as possible. On the day the announcement was released, the US CEO Kermit gave the company's employees a paid leave, and even took all the company's senior executives to Hawaii for a public trip. When American netizens saw this news, they were stunned. Antitrust investigation? Suspension of service? WTF? Question mark? Chapter 672 Suspend Service. In the user agreement, the products sold by Futureman Technology, the Phantom Helmet, including a series of products such as the God-level continent and the virtual reality community, are all online services, provided by quantum computer servers. If Futureman Technology stops providing virtual reality services, the entire virtual reality network will be interrupted. After everyone logs into the Phantom Helmet, they can only face the empty white cube like a prison cell, and face the application that cannot be opened. They can't even browse the web. Want to restore the virtual reality network? Sure, go get a quantum computer first. Companies like Futureman Technology that make both equipment and content are quite scary when they play rogue. You investigate my equipment, then I will stop your content too. When the investigation is completed, we will open it again. If the Phantom Helmet can only be used to play games, Jiang Chen would never dare to do so. It's just a game console. It will be blocked, if it is blocked, and it will not have any impact on the country. However, after a year of development, is the function of the Phantom Helmet just a game console? Maybe it was a year ago, but it is definitely not now. Since the launch of the virtual community function half a year ago, immersive virtual reality has moved from the field of games to people's social life, and even work. Many private enterprises even use the virtual chat room function as a tool for remote meetings. Many educational institutions conduct remote education through virtual communities. In a year, Americans have long been accustomed to living with virtual reality. They spend more time during the day with their family and real friends, move the time of surfing the internet to after falling asleep, and connect their dreams with the virtual world. The next morning, they wake up from deep sleep and go to work with full energy. Now Future Technology has announced the suspension of virtual reality services, which means that these original habits will be broken. As soon as the news came out, American netizens exploded. Without virtual reality, many Americans even suffer from insomnia. I always feel that something is missing when I sleep. I used to fall asleep by pressing a switch, but now I have to lie in bed for a long time to brew the feeling. Some people really can't sleep, so they have to choose to wear a helmet, press a button, and stare at the pure white cube in a daze. Life without virtual reality is simply a torture. The US Department of Justice, which initiated the antitrust investigation procedure, immediately became the target of public criticism. Fuck the bureaucrats of the Department of Justice. Fuck the president. Throw protectionism into the trash. Fuck the interests of the capitalists. Give us virtual reality. There must be a dirty pie deal behind this. Let's guess how much money Google has stuffed into the hourly workers of the White House. Google said with tears in its eyes, "I'm really being shot, even when I'm lying down." The White House tried desperately to explain to the public that the antitrust investigation of Futureman Technology was reasonable. However, the lawyer of Futureman Group directly stated that it was unheard of to conduct an antitrust investigation on a company that had been established for less than 2 years and had launched its products for less than a year. Brown Courage, the representative of the Futureman Technology lawyer team responsible for the lawsuit with the Department of Justice, posted a tweet, teasing his opponent with humorous words. "This is probably the most interesting case I have ever received in my more than 10 years of career. My client hasn't even digested the market share he has already taken, but he is suspected of hindering other companies from entering the market." This tweet has been forwarded tens of thousands of times and even appeared in the Christian Science Monitor, causing heated discussions on American talk shows. Obviously, the American people are not buying into the antitrust investigation of the US Department of Justice. It can be said that the people in the Department of Justice are investigating and collecting evidence and preparing for lawsuits under tremendous pressure. However, the matter is not over yet. With the help of future technology, all kinds of organizations such as the Disabled Persons Association, the Black Rights Organization, and the Anti-Discrimination Association for Fat People have jumped out and taken to the streets to protest. Putting on the phantom helmet, I saw the colors of this world for the first time. Although I know it is fake, it is so real to me. I saw my wife for the first time. Although she is not as beautiful as I imagined, I love her. But now I put on the phantom helmet and can only face the blank wall. Future technology has opened this window for me, but those powerful people have closed it for the sake of profit. A blind man who was born blind complained in front of the camera of the reporter. In the virtual world, I don't have to care about skin color, because as long as I want, I can change my skin to any color. But you have deprived us of our rights, so we stand here to protest against you. A black man who is keen on defending rights said, "Give us back the virtual reality. At least in the virtual world, no one will care about my weight, and no one will call me fat guy behind my back, or shout and laugh at me. Hey, cook, have you ever been on a plane? They asked you to buy a few tickets? It's not funny at all." A 400-pound fat man screamed at the door of the White House. In this country, where political correctness is above all else, if a disabled person stood up and pointed at the president and cursed him, not only would the president have to apologize, but the media would also help curse him. In a sense, this phenomenon is very abnormal. Some people even joke that in the United States, the acceptance rate of black lesbians looking for jobs is extremely high, because once rejected, the company may be suspected of discriminating against blacks, discriminating against women, and discriminating against homosexuals. But it is undeniable that most people buy into this. Although it is a bit far-fetched to link virtual reality with discrimination, there is no way. The future group has a good rhythm. Using political correctness to kidnap politics is a very American approach. Faced with one-sided public opinion, the Ministry of Justice has to bear the pressure from the White House. In this regard, Attorney General Eric Lynch had to swallow his pride and talk to Jiang Chen on the phone, expressing his anxiety. "Investigation is investigation. Can you resume normal business first?" Jiang Chen said with a serious face. "No. We actively cooperate with your country's judicial procedures. We will never do anything illegal or disciplinary before we get rid of the suspicion of monopoly." The unfortunate Minister of Justice was about to cry and explained, "Anti-monopoly investigation does not mean that you can't do business. You just need to suspend the sales of phantom helmets in the United States." No. The virtual reality network is also part of the Future Technology Service project. In order to avoid interfering with the investigation and evidence collection, we are willing to take the initiative to suspend our business and make sacrifices to comply with your country's laws and regulations. Eric said angrily, "What kind of logic is this? Who asked you to make sacrifices?" Jiang Chen still had that serious face, holding the phone, and said in a deep voice, "Please don't be like this, Mr. Minister. We are a company, and suspending services means losses. At this point, we are definitely more anxious than you. We are waiting for your handling results and hope that you can also wait patiently for us to resume business." Eric was dumbfounded. The sun is still rising from the west. When did the company ask the government to wait patiently? Shouldn't we say this? After hanging up the phone, Jiang Chen finally couldn't hold it back and laughed out loud. "You are still laughing, and now the sales of the phantom helmet in the United States are completely stagnant." Seeing Jiang Chen's frivolous look, Sun Jiao couldn't help but roll her eyes at him. "Don't worry, it won't be long before sales will explode." Jiang Chen made an explosion gesture, looked at her and smiled. This time the closure of the virtual reality service is not only to put pressure on the White House, but also to hype our products. It's just that the advertising fee is a bit expensive. "There's no way. Who wants us to fight with the Boston Consortium?" Jiang Chen made a helpless expression to Sun Jiao. "What I'm more worried about is that, if the White House resists the pressure of public opinion and continues the antitrust lawsuit to the end, we will suffer the greater loss." After all, they are a government agency and we are responsible for our own profits and losses. Sun Jiao said hesitantly. It's impossible, because the Boston Consortium can't hold on any longer. The antitrust investigation was caused by them. As long as they admit defeat, the US Department of Justice will not insist on it, Jiang Chen said without hesitation. After a pause, Jiang Chen smiled and continued. And the most important thing is that our products are irreplaceable. Even if this market is lost for a short time, no one can replace Futureman technology. This is the real trump card that Jiang Chen relies on. Chapter 673 Compromise? The Boston Consortium can't hold out for long. It's not because they don't have money. On the contrary, they are very rich and have wealth that ordinary people can't imagine. Since the 1950s, they have used the scientific research results of MIT to develop emerging technology industries, completing the transformation from light textile industry to electronics, optics, radar, missiles, and even aerospace. If we calculate the actual controlled wealth, I'm afraid that 10 Bill Gates can't be their opponent. After all, Bill Gates is just one person, and these consortiums are even more than one family. For such a huge economic behemoth, banks are not the hematopoietic stem cells, but more important hearts. If there is a problem with the heart, the huge financial and industrial systems will face the risk of tight capital chain. So when the bank run just appeared, the Boston Consortium's offensive against the Future Group suddenly stagnated, and it didn't make the next move for a long time. The antitrust investigation did hurt the Future Group, but it was far less painful than the punch they received at the Boston First National Bank. Both sides are like boxers standing on the ring. Everyone knows that they can't knock the other down with one punch. They can only weigh their own gains and losses, and hesitate whether to throw the next punch. A manor in the suburbs of Boston. At this moment, the people standing in this house hold 1/10 of the power in the entire United States. The heads of the 5 major families, Lowell, Lawrence, Adams, Kennedy, and Lodge, gathered here, including big capitalists, Federal Reserve shareholders, and Democratic Party members. For the common interests, they gathered together. It's really too much. I bet that the depositor information leak must be their fault. John Lawrence punched the table and said with gritted teeth. I think so too, but we have no evidence, and the FBI has not found any clues. Bernie Adams said helplessly. How did they do it? Websense is responsible for the information security of Boston First National Bank. If their hackers can hack into our servers, then there is no reason why they can't hack into the Pentagon. Mr. Lowell also frowned. Since Raytheon spent $1.9 billion to acquire Websense, the industries under the Boston Consortium have been protected by this network security company. Because the business involves the military industry, the consortium's servers are attacked a lot every year, but no attack has ever been successful. I will remind the Pentagon. Adams said. Enough, my friends. We should not worry about the Pentagon now, but the Future Group. Lawrence said with a headache. The Saudi freshwater project cannot be compromised. Joseph Kennedy replied. But our garment factory in Texas needs funds, Raytheon's radar project at the Guam military base, and Bell helicopter and the Pentagon's orders. Lovell glanced at Joseph. Although I know that the Saudi freshwater project is important to you, it seems now, if we continue to fight with the Future Group, even if we will win in the end, the losses suffered by the consortium will be unbearable for us. I agree with Mr. Lovell's point of view. Bernie Adams nodded. I can't accept it. John Lawrence shook his head and said, if we compromise with them, where will we put our faces? Come on, Mr. Lawrence, we are businessmen, and it's just the gains and losses in the business world. If you really can't swallow this breath, we can deal with them later. But now, we'd better slow down. At least in terms of network security, we must upgrade. Rocky, who had been silent, spoke up. Then according to convention, let's vote by raising hands. For our long-term alliance, no matter what choice we make in the end, even if it is a choice I don't want to accept, I will contribute my strength to the alliance. Then, those who are in favor of reconciliation, please raise your hands. After speaking, Lowell glanced at the 4 people present and raised his hand. The result of the vote was 3-2. In favor of reconciliation. Who will contact them? Although the decision made by the consortium was not in line with the interests of his family, John Kennedy did not show any dissatisfaction on his face. "I'll go." Rocky looked around at the people present and said, "I'm the major shareholder of Boston First National Bank, so it's more appropriate for me to come forward." Although the major financial groups that control the US economy usually have a harmonious relationship, there is no such thing as harmony in the business world. When one side is in trouble, all sides lend a hand. This is normal. When Boston Bank got into trouble, Citibank and **** Bank announced that they would upgrade their bank security systems to ensure the security of every depositor's personal information. Such an approach is undoubtedly suspected of adding insult to injury, and the big financial groups can't do too much. So, on the third day, when network information security became a topic of discussion, the Federal Reserve took action. According to the latest news from the Wall Street Journal, the Federal Reserve injected $100 billion into Boston Bank to stabilize depositors' confidence. At the same time, Boston Bank announced that it would upgrade its security system to ensure that such incidents would not happen again, thus recovering some of its losses. While investors on Wall Street were struggling to digest the two breaking news, information leak of Boston Bank depositors and Futureman Technology may withdraw from the United States, Jiang Chen, who was far away in the Western Pacific, seemed much calmer. Standing next to the launch site, Jiang Chen watched the rocket take off, watching the solid smoke column dissipate, and a smile gradually appeared on the corner of his mouth. In this way, there will be 12 quantum communication satellites in outer space. You still have time to watch the fireworks, Natasha teased, standing next to Jiang Chen. "Oh. It seems that even Russia knows about a little conflict with the Boston Consortium," Jiang Chen said with a smile. "Of course, you are now on the CIA's key investigation list. They think that you are the one who hacked into Boston First Bank, and your real identity is actually an engineer who is proficient in computer technology. This conjecture is very interesting, but unfortunately, my computer level is only level 2. Jiang Chen laughed and avoided Natasha's temptation. "Let's not talk about this. What do you think of our rocket launch technology?" Natasha appeared at the rocket launch site of Starring Trade. Of course it couldn't be for personal reasons. Starring Trade's rocket launch technology is mature. In order to digest the excess launch resources, Jiang Chen set his sights on Russia. Due to the reduction in the total budget and changes in exchange rates, the Russian Space Corporation was forced to cut the maintenance costs of the International Space Station from 2016 to 2025 by nearly 30 billion rubles. $1 is about 75 rubles. Since Russia is paying high maintenance costs for the space station, Starring Trade can just share its worries. Not only can he make some extra money and make Starring Trade self-sufficient soon, but he can also accumulate experience in delivering supplies to the space station. Why wouldn't Jiang Chen do such a good thing? However, Natasha's answer was beyond Jiang Chen's expectations. "If you are willing to sell rocket engines, we can talk about it. If you plan to contract this project, my answer may disappoint you." Natasha sighed and spread her hands. "We will not contract this project to foreign aerospace companies. There is no room for negotiation." Chapter 674 Russian Cake. Supplying the International Space Station is not only an international obligation of several space powers, but also a good opportunity for countries to develop their own space technology. Only by making profits from this multi-billion ruble project can domestic space companies have money to develop new aircraft engines and improve existing launch technologies. Contracting to Starring Trade can certainly reduce the fiscal budget in this area, but it is undoubtedly bad news for domestic space companies. After all, there are only so many launch plans each year. Except for the US X Space, that can make money from commercial launches, most space companies rely on national projects for their survival. What Natasha said is also what the Russian leaders mean. If Starring Trade intends to sell rockets, Russia will certainly be happy to buy them. But if Starring Trade only intends to contract the launch project, there is no need to talk at all. "Don't you want to hear the price from my side?" Jiang Chen said helplessly. Natasha shook her head. "The Kremlin will not nod, even if the price you offer is very attractive. It's a bit difficult." But Natasha's words are not unreasonable. If you consider this issue only from the perspective of cost saving, why don't the Russians outsource the project to the USX space? The Falcon rocket with the first stage rocket recovery technology can reduce the launch cost to a terrifying figure. Although this matter seems to be non-negotiable, Jiang Chen has never been the kind of person who would give up easily. After thinking for a moment, he spoke. Really don't want to talk about the price. I mean the RM-320 rocket engine. I said there is no. Wait, what did you say? Natasha was suddenly stunned and looked at Jiang Chen in shock. Didn't I make it clear enough? The price of the RM-320 rocket engine. Jiang Chen smiled, putting away the shock between her eyebrows. Natasha looked at Jiang Chen calmly and spoke quickly. What do you want? According to the materials submitted by Starring Trade and the observations of Russian experts, the performance of the RM-320 rocket engine is more than one level higher than the RD-180 that Russia is proud of. Even X-Space's mail-in 1D engine cannot match it. The combustion chamber that can withstand 500 atmospheres of pressure, and the thrust-to-value ratio of 1:300, the production cost, is only half of the Russian RD-180. The Russian Space Corporation has proposed to the Kremlin more than once, hoping to order a batch of RM-320 rocket engines, based on the friendly relationship between Russia and Singapore. Although it may not be possible to copy it, at least some of the design can be used as a reference. Natasha never thought that Jiang Chen would agree to sell the engine, so she didn't mention it at all. Happiness came too suddenly. Jiang Chen's eyes swept over Natasha and said in a playful tone, "Guess." Facing the undisguised gaze, Natasha's cheeks flushed, but she soon noticed the teasing in the gaze and glared at Jiang Chen fiercely. "I can't guess." Jiang Chen stretched out 5 fingers. 5 years. Within 5 years, Russia's International Space Station supply project will be contracted by Starring Trade. 5 years later, we will sell the samples and design drawings of the RM-320 rocket engine to Russian space at market prices. It is really a good deal to exchange an outdated technology with a 5-year contract. As for why it is outdated, it is naturally because when Jiang Chen builds the space elevator, all rocket launch technologies will become outdated. Because of the emergence of the space elevator, the launch cost of tens of millions of dollars will be directly reduced to hundreds of dollars. This is also the reason why the launch vehicle technology was completely stopped at the end of the 21st century. I can't give you an answer. I have to ask my superiors first, Natasha said with difficulty. Jiang Chen made a gesture of invitation. Natasha nodded, walked to the side, took out her mobile phone, and called the KGB headquarters far away in Moscow. The call lasted for a long time, and she suddenly looked stern, holding the phone, and walked to Jiang Chen's side. "Our superiors want to discuss it with you in person." After that, she handed the phone to Jiang Chen, and took 2 steps back, putting the phone to his ear. Jiang Chen hadn't spoken yet, and a strong Russian accented English voice came from the other side. 3 years at most. The voice sounded familiar, but Jiang Chen couldn't remember where he had heard it for a while. 3 years is too short. We have to consider the technology upgrade. Don't worry about that. Not to mention 5 years. Even after 8 years, the RM-320 engine will still be able to maintain its leading position. Jiang Chen answered in an affirmative tone. There was silence for 2 seconds on the other end of the phone. 3 years. You will sell us the RM-320 engine technology in 3 years. We will outsource the supply mission of the International Space Station to you for 8 years at a price of 40 billion rubles. Deal. Jiang Chen said without hesitation. Although there was no change in his facial expression, Jiang Chen was so happy that he almost laughed out loud. 40 billion rubles is roughly equivalent to more than 600 million US dollars. He can build a space elevator in 2 years at most. By then, the cost of delivering supplies to the space station can even be reduced to less than 1 million. This is not about US dollars, but rubles. It seems we have reached an agreement. After receiving Jiang Chen's affirmative answer, the voice on the other end was obviously much more relaxed, and he didn't realize that he had been tricked. I always feel that your voice is familiar. Before hanging up, can I ask who you are? Jiang Chen said happily without blushing or beating his heart. Didn't our agent tell you? She only told me that you are their superior. Jiang Chen was suddenly stunned when he said this. Wait, Natasha used we instead of my superior. The other party was silent for a moment and then spoke in a relaxed tone. You can call me Putin. If you have the opportunity, welcome to Moscow. Holding the phone in his hand, Jiang Chen was stunned. Wait, the person who just talked about business with me was the Russian president? Exclamation mark. And I tricked him. The 12th quantum satellite was successfully launched, and Starring Trade announced that it would provide paid full coverage Wi-Fi services to Australia, New Zealand, New Guinea, Morocco, Malaysia and other countries. According to the cooperation project with local telecom operators, as long as users apply for this service, they can get 12 hours of Wi-Fi experience time. After the trial time is up, users can apply for service packages with different internet speeds according to their regions. Currently, Starring Trade is discussing cooperation with telecom operators in the United States, Canada, Britain, France and other countries, and is considering promoting global Wi-Fi to North America and Western Europe. On the other hand, the war between Future Group and Boston Consortium is still going on. However, neither side has come up with any new moves, but is deadlocked in the areas where they have already made moves. The US Department of Justice is still collecting evidence for the antitrust investigation, while the Boston Consortium is still busy saving the bank's fire. What is more troublesome is that WebSense, which is responsible for providing security services to Boston Bank, has comprehensively upgraded its server firewall and has made targeted upgrades to the defense against hacker attacks. According to Zilei, the upgraded security system of Boston Bank is like an iron barrel, and the original loopholes have been basically filled. Unless you can get an internal computer as a backdoor, it is no longer so easy to hack remotely, even if you have a quantum computer as a broiler. After all, they have so many technicians, and they are not eating for free. On the other hand, Jiang collected news about the tech companies on the internet and presented them to Jiang Chen after summarizing them. The Federal Reserve injected $100 billion into the First National Bank of Boston. The Pentagon convened a number of cybersecurity companies to hold an internet security summit. Information security in the financial sector is the focus of discussion at the summit. The Federal Reserve actually took action. It seems that the Bank of Boston has stabilized for the time being. Jiang Chen frowned slightly. Just as he was thinking about what to do next, Zha Xiao's phone suddenly came in. Hello. What's the matter? Someone is looking for you and hopes to talk to you in person. Who? Carson Lodge, a shareholder of the First National Bank of Boston. Chapter 675 From Enemy to Ally. Jiang Chen did not give Natasha a clear answer to the invitation from the Russian president, but said that he would visit Moscow when the time was right. Due to the economic situation in Russia, Future Group currently has very little business in Russia, and the sales of Phantom helmets are far less popular than in North America and East Asia. After receiving Zha Xiao's call, Jiang Chen immediately went to the company. The person who asked to meet with him was a representative of the Boston Consortium, and the identity of this representative was also extraordinary. After discussing it, the two concluded that there was an 80% chance that the Boston Consortium's visit was for reconciliation. In the confrontation with Future Group, they were finally unwilling to waste time. For the $1.5 billion freshwater project, they lost at least $10 billion US. Of course, Jiang Chen also lost a lot of money. The first loss of the most profitable future technology has already explained a lot of problems. But if this battle is carried out to the end, the first one to fail must be the Boston Consortium. Even if the Federal Reserve helps, even if they upgrade the network security shield, Jiang Chen has quantum computers as support, and it is only a matter of time before the defense is broken again. The next morning, next to a Gulfstream G650 at the Cora airport, Jiang Chen met Carson Lodge, a major shareholder of the First National Bank of Boston. Unlike the internationally renowned financial tycoons, Jiang Chen had never heard of his name and had never heard of the Lodge family. Although it is also one of the families that control the Boston Consortium, it is far less well known than the Kennedy family, which is bearing the curse of short life, and the Adams family, whose ancestors participated in the drafting of the Declaration of Independence. But this mysterious Lodge family holds a power that cannot be ignored. Not only is he a major shareholder of the First National Bank of Boston, he is also one of the secret shareholders of the Federal Reserve. In order to collect this intelligence, the ghost agents lurking in the United States have spent a lot of effort. This old man in a blue suit with a kind face is much more powerful than he looks. Seeing is believing. Mr. Jiang Chen looks much younger than in the newspaper. Seeing Jiang Chen, Carson Lodge greeted him with a smile and stretched out his hand to shake Jiang Chen's hand. Judging from the smiling faces, it is hard to imagine that the two sides have already met in the business arena. Mr. Rocky has come over. Jiang Chen smiled and exchanged a few pleasantries with him while pondering the meaning of his personal visit. Since they were staying in the presidential suite of Hilton Hotel in Ocean Heart, the special car responsible for picking up VIPs from Hilton had already arrived at the airport. Arriving at Ocean Heart with Carson Rocky, Jiang Chen asked Wei Yun, CEO of Future Travel, to prepare a reception room. When Mr. Rocky checked into the hotel, half an hour later, the two sat down in the reception room. In some aspects, we may have a little misunderstanding, and I came here this time to resolve the misunderstanding between us, Carson said straight to the point. For example, Jiang Chen asked with a smile. For example, we had a disagreement over the Saudi freshwater project, and the disagreement led to friction in our other businesses. After a pause, Carson looked at Jiang Chen. Then I won't waste my words. It's no good for anyone to continue to waste time. It's just that who will suffer the greater loss. Do you agree with my point of view? I agree very much, but this does not mean that we will compromise. Future Group only promises not to use unfair competition methods first. Jiang Chen smiled. Oh. In other words, you admit that the depositor information leak incident was caused by you? Carson said with a smile. I never said that. Please don't misinterpret my meaning, and don't make unwarranted guesses without evidence. Jiang Chen said without hesitation. Carson Lodge looked at Jiang Chen meaningfully, paused, and then said, for the Saudi freshwater project, we will negotiate with other shareholders of the American Matrix to withdraw from the project. In terms of technology, the American Matrix has already lost to Future Heavy Industry. Whether they withdraw or not, they have little chance of winning. Unless the Saudi side insists on building its own desalination plant, their equipment is unattractive. This favor is sold without sincerity. It's a wise choice. But what I want to say is that the problem is not here at all. Jiang Chen shook his head, put his hands on the table, stared into Carson's eyes and continued, since you are planning to negotiate, then I won't beat around the bush. Stop all unfair competition against Future Group and return to the framework of fair competition. After a pause, Jiang Chen said seriously, otherwise, we will take further action. The silence lasted for 2 minutes, and Carson began to explain. The antitrust investigation against Future Technology has been brewing for some time. Virtual reality networks are on the rise, and the United States will not rely on foreign companies for its network security. We just brought forward this plan that has been discussed for a long time without any results. Really? Then we deeply regret the hacker attack on Boston Bank. I heard that the United States is attacked by tens of thousands of cyber attacks from overseas IPs every day. Compared with this time, the leakage of depositor information is just an accident. Jiang Chen smiled. And accidents may happen again. Carson fell silent again, and after a long time, he spoke in a relaxed tone. We are here to discuss reconciliation today, aren't we? Since you intend to reconcile, please at least make a proposal that shows us your sincerity. Mr. Rocky, I have to remind you that you started this war first. Jiang Chen said sternly. From the moment the Blue Seagull Environmental Protection Organization pointed its spearhead at the Future Group, this war was no longer limited to the US Matrix and Future Heavy Industry. And there is only one way to end this war, that is, both sides withdraw their hands from each other. The US Department of Justice stopped the improper antitrust investigation of Future Technology, and Future Technology stopped hacking against Boston First National Bank. Carson tapped the table lightly with his fingers and spoke. We can help you withdraw the lawsuit filed by the Department of Justice, but do you have to do something about our losses? What is your opinion? Recover our losses in depositor credit and Dow Jones listed stocks. We are not very good at manipulating stocks, and I may not be able to help with this matter. Jiang Chen leaned back in his chair and spread his hands. It has nothing to do with stocks. There is a Chinese proverb that goes, you can't get to know each other without fighting. Since it is no longer in the interests of both of us to continue fighting, there is only one option left. I mean, are you interested in starting a strategic cooperation with us? Carson Lodge smiled. Carson's proposal was beyond Jiang Chen's expectations. The Boston Consortium was willing to abandon its prejudice and start a strategic cooperation with the future group on the basis of reconciliation. After a long silence, Jiang Chen spoke. Your proposal is very tempting, but I want to hear the specific content of this cooperation. I came prepared. The old man took out a document from his briefcase and placed it on the table, smiling very cheerfully. Picking up the document, Jiang Chen glanced at it briefly and raised his eyebrows. Cooperation? Interesting. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.